car that's been pretty similar. Having that clean slate and just going out there and just doing our best, working hard to improve it, for me is, you know, really exciting.
Are you a future world champion?
You know, I don't like doing my talking off the track. You know, I don't. Whenever I get asked these questions, I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe it. And you know, I'm going to go out there and work as hard as I can to give myself the best opportunity to win the World Championship.
I've got one last thing for you to do before you go.
Here we go.
You put where you think you'll be. We'll open it again at the end of 2022. But also, I'd like you to write down a few words to yourself for the end of 2022.
Okay.
So you can either put how you're feeling now, you can give yourself some advice for however you feel at the end of next year. We're going to give you this just to write down.
Okay. I won't do this on camera. I need to have a little think.
That's fine. You can take it away and do it and give it back to us later, because you can seal it. We're not going to look at it until the end of 2022.
Yeah.
So you go.
Sorry, what have you got in your hand, by the way? Are these all of your notes?
There may be some notes and some questions. That's beside the point.
A tattoo?
Let me just check that I've done them all. Yeah, I have. Look, I didn't even need to look. Yeah, we'll come back to you at the end of 2022. That's all right. I deserved it. And we'll open it then. So we're not going to open it. You write it. You seal it. And we'll have a look and see what you predicted. We are all really pleased for you. We're looking forward to seeing you in the Mercedes next year, but we're also looking forward to you finishing out this sensational season as well. So thanks for chatting to us and have a good weekend.
Cheers.
Thanks, George.
See you later.
I'm all the way up. Nothing can stop me. I'm all the way up.
I think he will be. I think he'll definitely challenge Lewis more over a race distance. I think where Valtteri has got, you know, a very good reference to Lewis is obviously in a qualifying lap, but you know, the Williams guys, they say he's a real deal. You've got to believe, because they've got all the information and how George goes about his business on the track. He's a very confident lad. It's just how the team dynamics work, I guess, is a big question. But you know, when he stood in for Lewis last time out at Sakhir, Lewis had COVID. He delivered, and he didn't have much time to get up to speed, so he'll be hoping he'll get the same taste when he jumps in that Mercedes next year for the first time.
There he is in behind us, just getting into his race suit. We've got around about 45 minutes to go until lights out here, and the 14th race of the season, only 9 to go. And we'll continue this conversation about George in a couple of moments when we head out into the grid.
The agility to make the right decisions faster. F1 on Sky Sports is brought to you by Workday, a system for finance, HR and planning.
This is our collective history. Together, it's ours to protect. For new histories to be written, new records shattered, new legacies forged. CrowdStrike. We stop breaches.
When you're following the game live, do it from the best seat in the house. In play from Sky Bet. That's betting better.
That was fun.
Alexa, play our dance playlist.
Your playlist. Turning on lights.
Alexa, can you pause time?
Let's just enjoy the moment.
So, have I got this right about the free £250 excess cover?
Mm-hmm.
When you insure your car, you can agree to foot part of the bill if you make a claim. That's the excess, right? But only Go Compare agreed to refund up to £250 of that when you make a claim. Anything to add?
Rejoice, rejoice that Go Compare is there!
They've already refunded over £1 million.
Do your degree with Arden University. It's all online. You study from home, around your job, over breakfast, in your comfies. It's dressed up, dressed down, dressing gown. It's study on your terms. It's for family, the future, the perfect job. A new career, new pay. It's your degree, your way. It's not just an online degree, it's an Arden degree. Find out more at arden.ac.uk.
People like us need power to feel alive. You're a monster. Game's not over, buddy boy.
Game 0, Tottenham v Chelsea, our first net zero carbon football match, delivered by Sky Sports and supported by COP26, the UN Climate Change Conference.
Some bad men are coming to hurt us. We're gonna bring the sky down on their heads. Now!
The engine's starting to rev, cars making their way to the end of the pit lane. Let's go to Ted.
Thank you, Simon. Yes, if it's Sunday, it must be Monza. And if it's Monza, it's the Temple of Speed. Lando Norris is the keen driver of the day. He's the first driver to actually come up for a practice start. But it's all about a practice start for the reigning world champion, Lewis Hamilton. It went disastrously wrong yesterday. The Mercedes is capable, there's Valtteri Bottas just passed me, the Mercedes is capable of doing a good start. Valtteri Bottas got a great start yesterday away from pole position, but Hamilton, it was wheel spin central, changing at wheel spin junction and ending at wheel spin terminus, and it was awful. Here he comes. All right, here's Lewis. Let's have a go, let's have a look. Just left, here we go, right. Let's have a look at the rear wheels as he does a practice start. Let's follow him down a bit. Follow him down, because that's his only hope. We assume he's going to start on the soft tyres. That's his only hope, number one, to try and challenge the McLarens. His only hope, number two, is strategy. But it's a one-stop race here because there's such a high time loss in the pit lane, 23 seconds. If you luck into a safety car, that's only 13 seconds. So Hamilton will be looking for that. Track position is, as usual, important around here because it's so difficult to overtake. But, well, we didn't get to see the practice start. We might get one of the Red Bull. Let's go back to the Red Bull down here. Can you see that? Let's see if you can see the Red Bull's start of Max Verstappen before we hand up to David Croft. Crofty, yeah, a one-stop, but will it be a one-stop for everybody? And could it even be a two-stop for the Mercedes? Your thoughts?
Well, very possible, Ted. One thing I do know, it's all a bit different at Monza for the top three on the grid, because Max Verstappen and Daniel Ricciardo and Lando Norris all having their best ever starts for an Italian Grand Prix. Last time Red Bull were on pole here was with Sebastian Vettel back in 2013, and the last time McLaren had two cars anywhere in the top three on the grid was Brazil in 2012. Jenson Button and Lewis Hamilton. What was his last race for the team? Last time McLaren lined up in the papaya colours on the front row here at Monza was with Denny Hume back in 1969. We're watching the Ferraris. Plenty of interest on Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, of course. Leclerc has put his old power unit back in, or his mechanics have, after some electronic issues affecting engine braking on Friday. They've gone back to the old power unit today because they say they fixed those problems. Now, Lewis Hamilton starts fourth. Really intriguing this for Lewis Hamilton. He has got two brand new sets of soft compound tyres. So is he going to use the softs at the start to get a better getaway and try and jump one or two of the McLarens? And could Mercedes go to a two-stop strategy because their engine clipping on the long straight, it's losing a bit of power, stuck behind other cars? Could they just get Lewis Hamilton out into a gap and then be challenging Max Verstappen, they hope, later on in the race? Fascinating strategic battle coming up there. And start your stopwatch at lights out today, and if we reach the checkered flag in under 1 hour 14 minutes 19.838 seconds, we'll have the fastest F1 World Championship race ever. Last year we had a red flag and two safety cars here, so that thoughts of a fastest race ever were put to bed. Usain Bolt, the one-time fastest man on the planet, is here looking for speed today. In 2019 we were 1 minute and 6 seconds away from breaking the record for the fastest ever race, and there were two virtual safety cars that day. So I'm hoping, as I feel the need for speed, that we could get the fastest race ever. Simon Lazenby, what do you reckon?
I reckon that will be good to watch, Crofty. I really do. Okay, just with regards to Mercedes and Lewis today, Paul, obviously, you know, they're expecting, I think, to have the upper hand over Red Bull. Huge moment. Could be a really big moment in the championship should Red Bull and Max take the win today.
Well, they're in a great position to do it, but of course they've got to get to turn one. If they get to turn one in the lead, then the race is very different. But McLaren's both having a great start yesterday. I mean, this is absolutely where Mercedes thought they weren't going to be. This was a track they were going to have their advantage. Here in Russia, they had to put some gap into Verstappen to stop this comeback that he's had after the summer break. But of course, Lewis, did the pressure get to him yesterday, went too deep in the clutch, and it's a run to turn one where he lost out. From there on in, you're just going to sit there because the clip-in that Crofty was talking about when the engine's trying to recharge. But obviously, I think this maybe Pierre Gasly's car. It's had a massive rebuild. It will start from the pit lane, but that looks like there's a bit of an issue on board.
Before the break, we were talking about George and how we thought he might fare against Lewis. Will Lewis be slightly nervous about somebody else coming? He was so comfortable with Valtteri alongside him.
Yeah, I mean, you can always look at it, you can be comfortable, but listen, you're only out there for yourself to a certain point. It's only when the big boss gets on the radio that things start to change how Formula One drivers approach their driving. They're kind of out there on your own, and you know, when you see these onboard cameras, you see how little they can see, you see how little they can see in the rear view mirror, and from there it's just a battle. You know, you've got to get your muscles out because it should be the 20 best drivers on the grid going head to head. The best man can only win, and any upper hand you can get just gains your confidence.
Yeah, something clearly going on down at AlphaTauri, some concerned faces, and that car still not out of the garage. That is Pierre Gasly's, of course. He went yesterday out in qualifying, starting the back.
Don't give a what the data says. I feel it.
Okay, do we have to stop? Do we have to stop the car? Can you confirm this?
I can't race like this, so I don't know. I can do one more lap if you want, but I just can't race like that.
Well, you probably heard that at home better than we did here on the grid. It's incredibly loud down here, but obviously he had that shunt yesterday in the wall off at Curva Grande. The place, of course, where he won last year.
Yeah, I mean, he was in such a good position on the back of a great qualifying, and you know, he got a very good start. I was on the right tyre yesterday, but like you, Simon, I couldn't hear what it is, but he's obviously the driver is feeling one thing. The team are saying we're not seeing it, and he said, look, the human element, I have to make the decision. You have to come back to the pits and sort this. So it looks like something on the front end. I wonder if it's brake pedal, whether it's just too long and it doesn't feel confidence. And anywhere you need the brake pedal to feel 100% is here, because the straight line speed, you know, you're in excess of 340 at times in a slipstream.
Ted's on the hoof down there. We'll try and get some more information to you as soon as we have it. In the meantime, let's hear from Lando Norris, who's on screens, was Andreas Seidel talking to Rachel.
Well, Andreas, how's the heart rate right now?
Yeah, a bit nervous, but I'm always a bit nervous before going into the race. At the same time, excited to see and curious to see what we can do today. We should have a strong car, two strong drivers, a strong team. And obviously starting in P2 and P3 is a good starting point.
When I spoke to Lando originally on Friday, he said, I think we're quicker than what we've shown on the Friday. So it proved to be yesterday. But what can you do to keep those Mercedes behind today? And do you have to watch out for them trying the undercut on you?
Yeah, I mean, we have a good picture, a realistic picture of where we are in terms of pace over the race. It is clear that Lewis and Max have better race pace than us, especially over the distance. But at the same time, you have seen yesterday, if we have a good start and a good strategy, there's a chance maybe to block one or the other car over the course of the race and stay ahead. So we need to see how the first lap goes. It's important to come back after the first lap, first of all, in one piece with both cars. Gives always a bit of extra stress also for me when I see that both cars are starting close together. But I have a lot of trust in these two guys, so the competition is not between these two guys, it's the teams around us. Yeah, it'll be interesting what we can do today.
All the best. I hope it goes well. Remember to breathe on that first lap as well, won't you?
Thanks.
Thanks, Andreas.
I'm pretty confident something is coming out of the rear brakes, out of the ducts. They seem to be very hot.
There you go, that's George Russell's concern, so we will get Ted as busy as possible and bring you the information when we get it. In the meantime, let's head to Martin for an attempted grid walk.
Yes, indeed, I'm right at the back of the grid. Just have a look, this is the DRS board. It's a long way from the last corner parabolic, a beautiful exit down there before they're allowed to open that rear wing. And it's made out of polystyrene. Look, it's made out of almost nothing. It's a wonder it doesn't blow over when the cars are coming past. So let's take a little look at what they're doing here. We can see they've got all sorts of, that car, Kubica, is going towards the back of the grid anyway, but we'll wander over, and hopefully there's a Ferrari coming down, so we'll go over and join the Ferrari mechanics, trying not to get run over. This is the grid walk, no talk. Under the COVID protocols, I'm not allowed to approach anybody, so we'll just have a poke around the cars and see what the procedures are. All sorts of pieces of equipment and paraphernalia. That doesn't look like you particularly want to lift a Ferrari on this little wheels here, but you can see the dolly wheels go underneath so they can then steer the car. It's a very weird feeling when you're inside the car because you feel you're moving but you don't have any control. So they'll lift the car up using the grid jacks, and front and rear, and it's got to be coordinated, and then under goes that with a handle on it. Get it in the right position. Of course, you've got the plank underneath there. You don't want to damage the underneath of the car at all. Leclerc's Ferrari, they don't go to the grid on their race tyres. You don't want to risk getting a puncture, and we'll wander through with it. So now it'll caster any which way they want, basically. He looks like he's the last man onto the grid. We know he's put an engine, a power unit back in that. Valtteri Bottas to our left-hand side. There are 19 cars on the grid because Pierre Gasly, we're hearing he's got problems anyway. Pierre Gasly starts from the pit lane because they've changed so many things, including items that weren't consistent with what he went out into parc fermé conditions into the sprint race. And so he starts in the pit lane. Bottas has got a lot of work to do as we then just follow this Ferrari around. There's Yuki Tsunoda. He's so short, he's not, I mean, it's incredible the power he's got when he's inside the car, but he's only a little fella. George Russell here behind me just getting out of the car, and a very tall driver compared to Tsunoda, who's alongside him on the grid. We've got a lot of sort of line asterns in terms of the two Alpines here can slipstream each other, the two Aston Martins to our left-hand side, and it's quite a slow move, isn't it? A long, long way. So each grid slot is separated by 8 meters. So that's the advantage you've got. They call it a row on the grid, but of course it's not. It's a staggered 1 by 1 by 1, really. It's not a 2 by 2, in that they're all separated by the same 8 meters. And now the jacks have followed the car down. They've got to coordinate that again in terms of lifting the car up, synchronized, and bits and pieces going on now in terms of cooling the engine. They want to get some dry ice in there as well. And up goes the jacks. They're not taking the dolly wheels out yet. They want to presumably let the driver get out. Now let's have a look at this steering wheel. These are the clutch paddles we're talking about on the back, and you can see there like a little slot that his fingers can go into, where they've got to release the clutch manually. And that's what Lewis had a problem with yesterday as Charles gets out of the car, in terms of they've got to control the start phase on the clutch. And you're sitting on the line, you're waiting for those 5 lights to go out, and then you've got to get the car away without lighting up the rear tyres, then get into the next phase of that, start shifting through the gears. It's a long run down to the first corner. So we've got leaf blowers here that keep the brakes cool, and then they'll start, so they're blowing air as well, into cold air into the air intake that feeds the engine. I'm getting in the way here, I need to just step back. So much equipment comes to the grid to cool some parts, heat other parts. Now look at this tiny rear wing here. This is the Monza rearing, the really skinny wing, so that they've got higher top speeds. And this is, when they open the DRS, it's quite the mechanism in the middle here, look. That is what flaps the rear part of the wing open. narrow when you get down there, but then just sitting there all by itself.
Decision on your side, what strategy you're going for?
We've gone for the best strategy. There to see that, and of course he's going to be towing, slipstreaming. The entire grid along behind him. When we get down there. So first time on the front row of the grid since 2018 for Daniel Ricciardo. And remember, you know, he wants to win this race. He's not up for a world championship. He can get more punchy on the brakes down into the first corner. Max Verstappen will not want to be tangling with his old Red Bull teammate, that's for sure. So McLaren probably don't think they're racing. They think the Red Bull will disappear if it stays out front. As Giovinazzi there, he's 7th on the grid. Another, as he was last weekend, a tremendous, hello Esteban, how are you? A tremendous effort from Giovinazzi, who we think probably won't be in the Alfa Romeo next year. But that's about it from this part of the grid, and back to you, Simon.
Yeah, Antonio Giovinazzi is just next to us at the moment. He's listening to his earphones and getting in the mood for the race. As we're saying, yeah, it was a great performance, because actually, you know, there are some question marks about whether he's going to have that seat next year. Obviously, Ferrari would like to see him stay there, but there's some big money offers for the likes of Guan Yu Zhou, aren't they? $30 million, we understand he might bring.
Yeah, there is, and it's the one seat left, I guess, that you would definitely want if you were a driver coming into F1, so that's where it's hard for him. you know, he's had enough time in that car to show the team what he's about. I guess they're just looking at the options and seeing who's coming through from F2. And you kind of feel for F2 drivers, because the young generation coming into Formula 1 makes such an impact, but if they don't get these chances, especially going into these new regulations, the teams will want security, and if they're going to give them a chance, now's their time. If not, this is what Formula 1's about, and this is where I think it's such a key thing what happened yesterday. Valtteri was able to drive away, Max finishing P2, Lewis out of position on a track that he should have got these points on, so for Bottas's point of view, that's just another notch to prove to the rest of the F1 grid, when he's given the right tools, when the right people are behind him, he's as close to a 7-time world champion as you'd probably want a teammate.
Tactically today, does Lewis's team have to do something different to the Red Bull of Max?
They probably do, because the problem is they got stuck behind the McLarens. If the McLarens are kind of running down the grid within 2-3 seconds, they're getting the benefit of that slipstream. Lewis isn't going to make an impact, so Mercedes will differ their strategy to try and get on top of that. But then at the same time, remember, the cars have probably got another 2/3 of fuel on board. The extra loads, it will hurt the soft tyre, so if they're going to go very aggressive on a 2-stop, they will be making the impact at the end, whereas Max will keep his nose clean. But this is all the things. I mean, it's 4 meters difference, a soft tyre to a medium at the race start. That's the difference between qualifying first and second. So if you get a perfect start versus perfect start, you're already racing something into turn 1. And of course, like I say, the others have got less to lose going into turn 1 than Lewis has. They'll know he's going to be calculated. And if he falls further back, then it just makes it more pain and more thing. But I'm not underestimating what Lewis is capable of. Easily could still win this race.
No one is, are they? But there we go. It's going to be fantastic, isn't it? That 450-meter run down to that first chicane. We'll discuss that more in a few moments' time. But right now, it's time for Formula 1's We Race as One message.
We race because it's who we are.
We race to compete.
On the tracks, in the pits, as a sport.
But we all race for something bigger.
It's time we race
for equality.
It's time we race for sustainability.
It's time we race to be global citizens.
It's time we race for equal access, opportunities, and representation.
Because sport can change the world, but it's up to us to make sure that change is for the better.
United, we are stronger.
Change starts with you.
It needs to come from your heart.
Keep working.
Keep learning. Keep on understanding.
We have a platform to
shift change, starting little by little.
Boy or girl, man or woman.
United for the same causes.
We have the opportunity to spread the right message.
If we all pull together, every single person has responsibility.
The best example is our own example.
We need to be responsible on what kind of mark we leave.
We don't have all the answers yet, but we can help find them.
Change starts here.
We race.
We race.
We race.
We race. We race.
We race as one.
Time for Formula 1's anti-racism gesture. The drivers and end racism in the world. Formula 1. But it's a beautiful day here in Monza. You have to say everything is set fair. I've not seen the grid this busy since the start of the pandemic. There are celebrities here, there's a number of dignitaries, and as always, the usual teams going through the motions ahead of the Italian Grand Prix. Magnificent stuff, are beginning to feel normal again, despite the fact that it's only 50% capacity. The fans making some noise in here, and the noise very much returning to Formula 1. Here it is then, one of the better ones, the Italian national anthem. Ah, hairs on the back of the neck, eh, Damon?
Yeah, right, bang on cue, look at that. Perfect, lovely sight.
Tony, we're just saying, I have not seen the grid this busy, have you, since the start of the pandemic? Things beginning, it seems, to return to normal.
Yeah, it's pretty frenetic, actually. I just walked up from further down the grid, and I saw the drivers walking down, doing their preparations, and now they're going back to their car, and a bit of a buzz,
Lando. Right, well, it was a good day yesterday. I bet you're hoping it'll be an even better one today. Is a podium possible?
I mean, it's possible if things go according to plan, but you never know here. Things can always happen with the safety cars and so on, and we have some very quick cars behind us. So we'll try. We obviously have our plan in place and our strategies for the race, but a lot of it has to be done, you know, after turn one, after the first lap, and so on. So we just need to be ready for everything.
So Lando, if you get ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, do you change strategy, or does you still have the same strategy depending on you've decided before the race, or is it all flexible?
Yeah, we have just strategies for as many scenarios as possible. So whether that's me coming out of turn one in first or third or fifth or whatever, we have all of our plans in place. So it doesn't matter really who's ahead or who's behind. I think we're ready for most scenarios, and the further up I'll be into turn one, the better.
Yeah, no, go on today. Appreciate it. We're just waiting to see if we can get Usain Bolt. Whilst we wait for him, let's just get an update on George Russell's car. No, he's coming right now. Let's just wait. Let's wait. Ted can wait because Usain Bolt's coming here, and he's an 8-time Olympic champion, and Ted isn't. Usain, lovely to see you. Thanks for joining us here. Are you a big motorsport fan?
Yeah, definitely.
So you're with Aston Martin today, presumably supporting them. Have you had a word with Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll?
I'm a Lewis Hamilton fan, so I actually just stopped by and said hi a while ago.
What did Lewis have to say to you?
For me, he's ready. You know what I mean? I was just wishing him all the best, and I'm excited to be here to watch what's going to happen.
Have you done any racing yourself, Usain? You're a bit big to get into one of these things.
Yeah, I'm too big, but I actually like to drive. I try to go to the Ferrari track. I did test driving. I went to the BMW track, so I tend to like fast cars.
You like fast cars. You also like football. Manchester United fan. I'm sure you're pretty happy with Ronaldo's return.
Yeah, definitely. he showed the class. Our team look really different, and I'm very pleased about this season.
Top man, thanks Usain. Thanks for stopping by and talking to us. Appreciate it. Let's get an update from Ted, as we said, who's not quite an 8-time Olympic champion.
No, absolutely not yet anyway, Simon. There's life in us all, but got to say, Monza is the best grid of the season. Why? Because you can go from one point and have a look at brake ducts and talking about how George Russell is fine with his brakes, something weird he felt, but it's absolutely fine. George will be fine for the race. And then, look, there's Vin Diesel. It's only Vin Diesel on the grid, and insert your own little Fast and Furious Monza 21 edition reference in there. He's having an absolutely great time. He's just meeting Susie Wolff, hanging out with Lewis Hamilton, absolutely loving it. Check out those guns. Oh, do you think he could probably fit in these cars, though? Maybe not. Oh, look at that. How was that for an image? Love it. And that is the thing. The owner go, hey, you're saying? Yeah, you're right. That is the only thing you get. That's the kind of thing you get on the Monza grid. Vin, you think you could drive these cars? You've got to give it a go. Got to give it a go. Get in there. Get in there, son. You were in there, yeah. Brilliant. Whew. Right, and then we can go and have a look in the eyes of the drivers, and there's nobody, oh, John Elkann, top man of Fiat. There's nobody who does a preparation like this man. Let's just keep our distance. We're like twitchers here on the grid. I've spotted one. He's got bright feathers and a lovely beak. He's Daniel Ricciardo, and he has this way of preparing for the Grand Prix, which is unlike anybody else. He's just been doing some loosening up, and in a minute, he's going to go and have a look. Look what he's doing. Look at his head. Look, he's talking to himself. He's singing to himself. He's just checking his whatnots. He's going to put his earpieces in. Come around the other side, Lee. Come around the other side. And we can look into his eyes, because this is the best chance he's had for ages of getting back on the podium. A horrible weekend, just banished. All those horrible weekends for McLaren when he's been outclassed, outpaced by Lando Norris, and suddenly he's on the front of the grid, and he has got a sniff of at least a podium, and you never know, maybe a bit more. He's already gone and eyeballed the first corner. Now he always gets into the car and just settles himself, then puts his helmet on. Just a few little dips and dabs, a few little sort themselves out, and then he gets in. Always the same routine for the Honey Badger. Right, we've seen enough of him. Let's go and have a look at Lando Norris, shall we? Because Lando, a very different routine, goes round and fist bumps everybody. Don't want to interrupt that. He's going around, has to fist bump everybody before he gets into the car. So helmet on, hands device on, fully sorted out. But if he misses someone out, he's got to go around and start it all again. It's a little secret and a little habit that he all has. Russell update, I've already said that, his brakes are fine, be absolutely fine. Lewis Hamilton keeps on going on about all the upgrades that Max Verstappen has on his car. Let's have a look at the floor, see what he's talking about. There are lots of upgrades on the floor. It's these that Hamilton is talking about, all of these flick-ups on the leading edge of the floor. Those are the upgrades that Red Bull keep bringing to this car. And Hamilton says, by comparison, his Mercedes has nothing. But it's all focus on Max Verstappen. You tend to win round here from pole, Simon. Can the Dutch Lion do it today?
Yeah, we shall see. I mean, it could be a big moment in the championship. They're all with only 9 races to go here. But as I said, if you're going to steal some points off Mercedes at what's usually a Mercedes track, it could be huge for Red Bull.
It's an absolute boon for Red Bull, this race. I mean, it's completely unexpected. I had to do a double take when I looked at the grid here. Where is the Mercedes? I can't see one. There's no Mercedes in sight from where I am. Here it is, Red Bull's greatest opportunity.
Here we go then, we're just about set then. 10 minutes to go till lights out for the Italian Grand Prix.
Singing or speaking.
Reason or fun. Head or heart. Sensitive or strong. Progress isn't either or. Progress is everything.
Jerry's here! Jerry! Mate, how are you?
It's so good to see you.
Good to see all of you, yeah.
Why is Jerry so popular? It's been like this ever since we started using Workday. What do you mean? It makes it easier to develop great relationships with our suppliers. Now, everyone, everywhere loves Jerry. They sure do. They do. They really do.
Workday. Finance, HR, planning, and spend management for a changing world.
Late drama here at Monza as we approach lights out. Yuki Tsunoda's AlphaTauri being pushed off the grid and Tsunoda walking away. No indication yet as to what the problem at AlphaTauri is. His teammate Pierre Gasly starts from the pit lane on his laps, his exploratory laps before going back into the pit lane, was reporting issues, suspension trouble, but it seems that Yuki Tsunoda has issues with his AlphaTauri as well. And as you can see, pushed off the grid and back into the pit lane. Will he be able to start this Italian Grand Prix?
It's building up to one of the most legendary battles.
Well, it's a dream season, isn't it? The two best going at it every race.
For us as spectators, awesome.
Lewis Hamilton's had a bit of a shocker at the start. Bottas wins the sprint. Max Verstappen comes home to take second place.
Yeah, well done, Max. That's pole position for tomorrow. Lewis P4.
It's Sunday in the Royal Park, and while Saturday was all about the sprint, this day of rest is about the grand prize itself. Welcome along to round 14 of the Formula One World Championship. In 2021, we're at Monza. It is the Italian Grand Prix and the 72nd World Championship Italian Grand Prix. There are 3,000 trees planted in this Royal Park, and a project to cultivate and care for its forest heritage is being implemented. It is a gorgeous place to be, whether you're a Ferrari fan or not. And Ferrari fans have celebrated 19 victories here over the years, the most by any constructor at any one circuit. What will Ferrari come up with today, I wonder, around this 3.6-mile track? It's the 9th iteration of circuit here in the Royal Park. 2 DRS zones along to the first chicane and along to the Ascari chicane. The race lap record held from 2004 by Rubens Barrichello. Here's the rundown to turn 1 in last year's race. Pierre Gasly, who started the pit lane today, went and won it this time last year, and he got squeezed a bit going into the Redafilo chicane. Alex Albon coming off worst. Curva Grande 2012, and what a battle this was between Sebastian Vettel and Fernando Alonso, who was pushed onto the grass, and Vettel will get a drive-through penalty as a result. To the Ascari chicane, Stroll and Sainz in last year's race battling away. Sainz in the McLaren, then Stroll in the Racing Point, staying ahead on that occasion, but Sainz would go on to finish in second place with Stroll alongside him on the podium. Here are the 3 tyre compounds. It's the C4, the C3 and the C2 in the middle of the Pirelli range. We have a free tyre choice for starting for every single driver. Who's going to go for the mediums, giving you durability? Who's going to go for the softs, giving you the best launch? Here's the grid then. Max Verstappen, a 7th pole in the last 8 races, but his first ever pole at Monza. Alongside him, Daniel Ricciardo in McLaren, and Lando Norris starts 3rd. 2 McLarens in the top 3 for the first time since 2012. Lewis Hamilton starts 4th ahead of Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. It's an all Ferrari 3rd row. Leclerc, Sainz and Antonio Giovinazzi starting where they did in the Dutch Grand Prix last week. Perez starts 8th, and Lance Stroll maintained his record of always starting in the top 10 for a Grand Prix here. He's 9th alongside Fernando Alonso in 10th. Sebastian Vettel starts 5 places higher for Aston Martin than he did Ferrari last year here. Esteban Ocon alongside him, and Nicholas Latifi ahead of George Russell. At the first time in 30 attempts he's out-qualified his Williams teammate. Yuki Tsunoda will have a pit lane start if he is okay to start. Nikita Mazepin, best career start for him, ahead of Robert Kubica and his Haas teammate Mick Schumacher in 18th. Valtteri Bottas won the sprint, changed his engine, has to take the penalty, starts at the back. Pierre Gasly, who crashed in the sprint, starts from the pit lane. He's changed his power unit as well, but he's taken on new units that weren't part of the original specification. So it's all to do for Valtteri Bottas starting from 19th today. It's all to do for his teammate Lewis Hamilton starting in 4th. Is it an easy win for Max Verstappen? As Christian Horner says, Martin Brundle, there's never an easy win at Monza.
That's for sure. We saw a really super aggressive first lap in Zandvoort, and I'm expecting them to be getting their elbows out down to the first corner. The top 16 all start on medium compound tyres, except
everyone around us on medium, except Hamilton on hard.
That's a weird choice from Lewis.
They said it for me, except Lewis Hamilton on the hard compound tyres, which hasn't impressed Charles Leclerc a whole lot. And he starts, of course, alongside him. Hamilton 4th, Leclerc 5th.
People are going to be scratching their heads on this one, Martin. He's got 2 new sets of the soft tyre. The hard is not great off the line. Why would Mercedes risk another bad start after yesterday?
They're obviously hoping he can hold position and then pump some laps in, while others, maybe McLaren, for example, are busy. Is this all about a worst case scenario? We need to finish 2nd here this afternoon, and maybe that's what it's about.
Ted Kravitz, down to you. News on Yuki Tsunoda.
Yeah, it's a brake problem. They need to change some hydraulic lines as well and refill the system. That's not a quick job. So I'm not optimistic, but they're trying their best to get him out for a pit lane start.
So 2 AlphaTauris in the pit lane. One's got a better chance of starting than the other, and that's Pierre Gasly. And we're off for the formation lap then. Max Verstappen leading away Daniel Ricciardo and Lando Norris, who have nothing to lose going into that first corner in terms of a championship scrap. Martin Brundle, how much pressure can they put on the championship leader?
But they would have been lectured heavily this morning by McLaren. Will Ricciardo and Norris, they want to beat Ferrari. They need point. That's their real fight, isn't it? Over 3rd place in the World Championship. So McLaren will be saying to them, look, don't you start tripping over Verstappen and co, or Hamilton. That's not our race. Our race is with Ferrari. But at the same time, you know, as you point out, if Daniel gets a good start and is alongside, he hasn't got to think about a World Championship. He fancies a victory.
First time that Daniel Ricciardo was started on the front row alongside Max Verstappen since Mexico 2018, when Ricciardo was on pole and Verstappen was second. Paul di Resta's at Sky Race Control today.
Yeah, just to make a quick point, Crofty, what Charles was saying, I mean, the last thing he wants to do is stuck behind Hamilton on a hard tire in the first lap, because he could be vulnerable. And equally, the McLarens, they'll want to gain track position, so they're not in a championship fight. They can take risks. Lewis can it. And he could very easily lose a few positions out of that start chart choice. Strange.
I tell you what, everyone holding their breath, as they always do for a start, and I think a little bit more tension has been added in the last few seconds.
But unlike yesterday, Crofty, you know, this is a full Grand Prix distance with over 100 kilograms of fuel on board. It's hot out there. Track's 45 degrees. You know, would a set of softs lasted long enough? You've got a maybe risk of blistering. Yeah, get you off the line. But for how long? So with full tanks, obviously in the sprint yesterday, they only needed a third of a tank of fuel.
That's a very good point, but of course he's got the two new sets of softs, so he's got the opportunity, Hamilton, well, had the opportunity to bang in some quick laps and then pit early, but not lose too much, because he could maybe turn it into a two-stop strategy. It's a one-stop, say the strategists here, and Mercedes have kind of followed those logical thoughts. I get the feeling Yuki Tsunoda will not be taking part in this race at all, so we'll have 19 going into to this race.
Italian-based team, of course, AlphaTauri, and very sadly then Gasly starts from the pit lane and Tsunoda remains in the pit lane. And
the only team to score in every single Grand Prix so far this season. They got their work cut out this afternoon. As on board with Lewis Hamilton, we line up in that fourth place on the grid, where he started, of course, in Austria and went on to finish fourth that afternoon. First time Lewis Hamilton's been outside the top three here in Monza since 2013 in terms of his starting position. What a day for McLaren. A lot of tension down there. There's some big points that they can earn here.
Bottas then won yesterday, starts, lines up last, and as usual, Verstappen a few centimetres ahead of the yellow line. He's allowed to do that as long as there's no relative movement. He's also angled his car slightly to the right to try to head off. You can see Verstappen's front wheel there.
Yeah. Usain Bolt here with Aston Martin. I wonder if he could beat some of these cars off the grid, but he's looking on in the garage as we look to the grid now. 5 lights on ahead of the drivers. It's lights out and away we go, and they weren't held for long, and Verstappen does get away well. Alongside him is Daniel Ricciardo, and Ricciardo is inching into the lead. Daniel Ricciardo will have the inside line here ahead of Max Verstappen. Hamilton has got away well too. It's Ricciardo into the first chicane ahead of Verstappen. Hamilton on the outside of Lando Norris. Giovinazzi's made up a place past Carlos Sainz, and he's now battling with Charles Leclerc. And to the Curva Grande we go.
That was perfect for Hamilton, straight up into third place, went around the outside of turn 2. He's directly behind his championship rival. Indeed, he's alongside him.
And Hamilton and Verstappen go into the second chicane, and Hamilton goes off onto the rumble strips and is forced wide, and he might lose a place here to Lando Norris as Antonio Giovinazzi has spun round and loses his front wing. It is Ricciardo that leads from Verstappen. Norris and Hamilton is back and forth.
And that will be a safety car if unless he can drive that quickly out of the way. There'll be bodywork on the track as well. They say he has got away, so that's good news then for the race. Bad news for Lewis Hamilton in terms of he looked like he was going to challenge for second place, take second place, and he slipped back.
Here comes Nicholas Latifi behind Esteban Ocon and ahead of Sebastian Vettel, and right at the rear, that is a very slow moving Pierre Gasly in the AlphaTauri, and an even slower moving car there, car number 99, Robert Kubica, without his front wing. So Kubica has had a moment, and we've got a virtual safety car as we look back to the Della Roggia chicane, and not for the first time in a chicane this season, wheel contact between Verstappen and Hamilton.
Push me wide. Copy.
So Verstappen was a little bit locked up going in there. And, yeah, look at that.
Did he get hit by Carlos Sainz there, Antonio Giovinazzi? We're riding on board with him now. Charles Leclerc to the left.
Oh, so he's gone straight across the chicane then, and somebody's presumably to his left at that point.
Check if I have a puncture. Giovinazzi have been a kamikaze.
So everything is fine and K2 off?
and Giovinazzi is back into the pits. Track is now clear, so virtual safety car has ended and we're racing once again. What a start for Daniel Ricciardo as we look now at the work going on for Robert Kubica, Antonio Giovinazzi there. And he's struggling, Martin, to get away.
Yeah. It looks like kept going into anti-stall there, just couldn't get it up and running.
So Ricciardo leads from Verstappen. Norris lost out to Hamilton, got that place back again. So it's Norris third, Hamilton fourth, then Leclerc, Sainz, Perez, Stroll, Alonso and Ocon completing the top 10. Latifi's made up a couple of places. Sebastian Vettel 12th, then comes George Russell, Robert Kubica, Valtteri Bottas has moved up to 15th ahead of Mick Schumacher, Nikita Mazepin, who's lost places at the start, Gasly and Giovinazzi.
So Ricciardo's bolted quickly out front. He's got a 1.2 second lead. We don't get any DRS, drag reduction system, for 2 laps after a virtual or actual safety car. And yeah, he's really got a nice gap there. But Verstappen, that was key, wasn't it? That was so key for Lewis Hamilton that I'm sure they'll be looking at that in the stewards. But it was the first lap of the race. Verstappen stayed on track, stayed on the racing line. I think he'll get away with that.
This is Valtteri Bottas getting past Robert Kubica, but that was not the easiest move. You'd normally expect the Mercedes to be blasting clear of the Alfa Romeo, but is that an indication as to the power of that Mercedes engine here this afternoon, that it took him the full length of that straight to try and get past? Let's look at the race start once again. Dream start here for Daniel Ricciardo.
They all got away quite well, didn't they? But Ricciardo, just in the second and third sort of phase, pulling up through the gears, powered through, then had the inside line. I always think it's a little bit odd. I know it's the racing line on the left-hand side, but it does leave you on pole position. It does leave you vulnerable. Hamilton then, clean and clear as you like, around the outside of Norris, and picks up the slipstream of Max Verstappen, and will be alongside heading into the second chicane. It's absolutely flat out through Curva Grande for anybody and everybody, wherever you are on the racetrack. And there we go. That a little bit Imola-esque, wasn't it, in terms of the action there with Verstappen on the inside. And look at this, the first time Ricciardo's led a race since Abu Dhabi 2018.
Which, of course, was his last race for Red Bull. And he leads from his former Red Bull teammate Max Verstappen, who's now got DRS and is less than a second behind him on the road. Now we're on board with Lewis Hamilton and watching a replay here as he tries to get alongside Max Verstappen. How did you see this, Martin? Wheel contact there. Hamilton pushed wide. It's one of those, to me, racing incidents that you often get and we've seen before.
On the first lap, I can't really see that. Yeah, so this is what happened. Giovinazzi comes back on the track in an unsafe manner. Charles probably could have and should have read that one a little bit better, and that's getting a touch rude between the Aston Martin drivers.
And that'll make the debrief a bit interesting, won't it?
Yeah, it's cost Vettel dearly, hasn't it?
Cost him 3 places in the end, 4 places in the end, as Latifi gets past him as well. And that's as the dust and the grass being thrown up into the air as Antonio Giovinazzi heads off the track, tagged by Carlos Sainz as he came back onto the track. And I said Verstappen was closing on Daniel Ricciardo, and he is. He's got DRS, and he is now half a second behind him.
And we saw this with Valtteri Bottas, the Mercedes engine, which is also in the McLaren, of course. They have clipping towards the end of the straight. They have where they're charging their battery. You can see their red lights flashing on the back as they're charging the system up towards the end of the straights. And I think this will give Max Verstappen a fairly reasonable chance of getting past Daniel Ricciardo.
The DRS effect here, it is not great. It's only about 0.25 seconds. Per lap, but you get the added benefit as well of the slipstream and the toe to make overtaking that little bit easier. Valtteri Bottas the man doing lots of overtaking at the moment. He is up to 13th as Pierre Gasly gets out of his car. Not one, but two AlphaTauris out of this race. Last year's race winner, Pierre Gasly, never got the chance to get going this afternoon.
Yeah, after the crash in the sprint, of course, the list of parts they changed on Gasly's car was as long as your arm. So many pieces. Oh, that was wide for Verstappen on the way out of the second Lesmo.
No investigation necessary in that incident at the De La Roggia chicane between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, say the stewards. We can head down to 10.
Yeah, poor Pierre Gasly, so that's both AlphaTauris out by lap 5. And it was just that problem with the front suspension. It was undrivable. He couldn't continue, he said, so they had no option but to retire him.
And that record of the only team to score points in every race so far this season disappears within the space of 5 laps here at Monza. It's not been a brilliant homecoming this weekend for the AlphaTauri team. Meanwhile, Daniel Ricciardo out in the lead is having an absolute blast in the sunshine here at Monza. It's a place that he's been desperate to get back to, and as Martin said, for the first time since Abu Dhabi 2018, he leads a Grand Prix and he's leading Max Verstappen and once again surviving any DRS threat.
And Hamilton 4 seconds adrift now of Ricciardo on those hard compound tyres. So he knew, I mean, didn't really hurt his start, did it, Lewis? Or his punch out of the first chicane.
It didn't hurt his start, and Hamilton's lap times are good at the moment, about 4/10 quicker than both Ricciardo and Verstappen, as we see Valtteri Bottas and his move on George Russell. But he's stuck behind Lando Norris, needs to clear Lando Norris, and then he should have the pace to start catching up with Verstappen. The one thing that has gone in Lewis's favour this afternoon is the fact that Ricciardo's leading, not Verstappen pulling away.
That's a very important point. Yeah, so long way to go yet. And this is all to play for.
Certainly is. So Paul di Resta at Sky Race Control, what have you got for us? Oh, 2 seconds.
Really hard to get close.
Yep, understood. I just have to wait for an opportunity.
I get the feeling you were just about to tell us that, Paul, so we'll come back to you in a little while. There we see the battle for the lead, and in the distance, the battle for the 3rd spot on the podium. Norris holding off Hamilton, as he did for 18 laps of the sprint yesterday.
So Ricciardo's been wide at turn 11, the final corner. Once you're allowed to do that 3 times before you get a warning, and it gives you a little bit more speed onto the pit straight. And Verstappen then saying, look, I can't get close to this guy. Now, with Hamilton on those hard compound tyres, as you pointed out, this is really key, isn't it? Yep. The fact that Verstappen cannot romp off down the road.
What he doesn't need, Hamilton, is Lando Norris getting detached from Max Verstappen. He almost needs Norris to be enjoying the slipstream from Verstappen's Red Bull to pull him along a little bit faster to keep Hamilton in touch. Don't forget, on those hard compound tyres, even though the 3 ahead of him are on the mediums, they will degrade faster than the hard tyre.
Absolutely, but this, of course, is what we saw in the sprint, isn't it? Hamilton couldn't make an impression on Norris. Norris wasn't, I mean, we've got a lot more fuel on board now, but Norris not making mistakes, and it's a bit of an action replay from the sprint, and extra frustration there. Hamilton with the rear wing wide open.
And there's that gap between Norris and Hamilton, under a second, which is why Hamilton has got the advantage of DRS down the straight. So no investigation necessary from the stewards for Hamilton and Verstappen. They are looking at that incident between Giovinazzi and Carlos Sainz. Giovinazzi coming back onto the track and Sainz hitting him and then spinning the Alfa. Could get the place back himself. I think that rather irked the Aston Martin management. As look at Sebastian Vettel now under pressure from Valtteri Bottas. Has come right onto the end of a queue of 4 cars. Which is not where we want to be, because the DRS train can emerge Paul di Resta.
Yeah, just one thing, Crofty. Perez has made good ground. The Ferraris have got as much pace as the McLarens, but the thing for me is Perez could very much play a part. Because he started on the better tyre, he's going to stop earlier than Hamilton, and he's going to maybe gain track position when he comes out on a fresh set, and that could hurt Mercedes. Perez could play that part of support.
Well, here is Perez trying to play that part very nicely indeed, but back comes Carlos Sainz. Perez thought he got that move done. Round the Curva Grande we go. Carlos Sainz is about 3/4 of a car length in front. Perez has got the inside line, so he's coming back at the Ferrari. And Sergio Perez to the Della Roggia chicane is in front of Carlos Sainz. That's brilliant racing from the Mexican and the Spaniard. And Sainz will still try and fight this as into the first of the Lesmo corners we go.
Yeah, he can overtake around here, and he got a little bit hot, did Sergio Perez, into the chicane. Managed to tiptoe around and had to defend into Lesmo 1, but now quite comfortably has that position. Yeah, he's gone really deep, and that makes the right-hander really tight. He knew immediately he'd got to go and cover the inside. Slightly compromised exit, but job done.
He does like it here at Monza. Does Sergio Perez scored points at the last 7 Italian Grand Prix, including a fine second place for Sauber here in 2021, where he started 12th on the grid. Did one of those traditional Sergio Perez Sunday afternoon moves. Started outside the top 10 and put himself very high up in the points. As once again, Verstappen closing on Daniel Ricciardo, but not in a position to get past him. And Hamilton looks a lot closer to Lando Norris than he has been now for a couple of laps, but still not close enough for his liking.
Yeah, to be more than a car's length better on the brakes than your rival in these cars is pretty difficult to do. Exactly as I was saying yesterday in the sprint, Hamilton can't afford a risky lunge. No. Can't afford a less than 50-50 move. I think he might have to get aggressive somewhere along the line, but it's got to be a sensible move.
Or they'll be quite content to sit there and wait until the McLaren pits and then go that much longer into the race, put on a set of soft tyres at the end and be that much more racy on the soft tyres at the end. Meanwhile, Hamilton's teammate Valtteri Bottas is up to 12 and ahead of Sebastian Vettel, who now has George Russell keeping him company, and Esteban Ocon is under a bit of threat from Valtteri Bottas as well. Nicholas Latifi still holding 10th place, and holding 10th place quite comfortably at the moment from Esteban Ocon, and lapping about a 1/10 of a second faster than the Alpine driver as we watch Daniel Ricciardo into the Parabolica. And a penny for Zak Brown's thoughts, I would imagine. Excitement mixed with trepidation for the next 42 laps.
It's nice to see McLaren leading a Grand Prix, isn't it?
Brilliant. Brilliant to see McLaren leading a Grand Prix. It's been a long time to wait, it really has.
And as we've seen, some higher deck on a couple of the medium runners. Just need to make sure we can make our target.
So that to me indicates just be a little bit patient here. You know, don't get too close, don't wear your tyres down, because we're actually doing okay. As Valtteri Bottas makes his move on Esteban Ocon towards that first chicane. And the Alpine was absolutely no match for Bottas on that occasion. He's on the fringes of the points now. Nicholas Latifi standing in the way of Bottas, and 10th place after he started 19th on the grid.
And Danny Ricciardo's been on the phone saying, this is all the pace I've got, this is it. And,
but it's enough so far.
Yeah. But Hamilton 4.3 behind. He was 4.4 at one stage, so he's matching the leaders, and it does seem as if those mediums are not exactly a cracking race tyre.
Maybe Mercedes got it absolutely spot on then. If you can survive the start here, the hard tyre, they say, becomes a very nice race tyre. Hamilton's, well, front left certainly looks in a decent condition at the moment. Ted, down to you.
Mercedes just had to do something that confused Red Bull, didn't they?
Yeah.
I think they have, but might turn out to be a nice strategy yet. And in fact, I think both McLarens are doing both championship contenders, Verstappen and Hamilton, a favour, and for Hamilton to be still in touch.
Hamilton is a lot closer to Lando Norris. I'm just going to stop you there, because I think Hamilton, with a bit of DRS here as Norris tries to break the toe, is going to go for a move under braking. Lando Norris just squeezes Lewis Hamilton to the far left-hand side, and very gently and very subtly there stopped Hamilton from making a risky move. But Hamilton's going to come back at him, not just through the Curva Grande, but towards the De La Roggia chicane, and Hamilton on the inside has got enough of a gap there. Has he got the pace in a straight fight with Norris? Not on this occasion. Norris under braking holds on to that third place.
Yeah, a little check in his mirrors for Lando Norris. So positioned his car well. He moved abruptly but cleanly down the pit straight. Difficult to see how far behind him Hamilton was there, but good defensive driving from Lando Norris, and you can tell, you know, Lewis was just pulling his punches there. He does not need to trip over that McLaren.
It just seemed... And he was close to the track limits on this occasion, but stayed on that white line. So he's okay there. We'll go back to Ted in a moment, but we're on board with Lewis Hamilton, and once again with DRS we are getting closer to the papaya orange of Lando Norris. He's a bit further back this time around, so Hamilton not making the move into that first chicane. Ted, we can go down to you.
Yeah, because I think there's some frustration on the Red Bull pit wall that Verstappen could go almost a second a lap quicker if he could get past Ricciardo. So Ricciardo holding Verstappen as he is helping Hamilton.
That's the point of he really is. Now he's got that he's broken the duck, and
keeping an eye. Look, he's looking in his mirrors, understandably. And Lewis can't lunge. He can't lunge him. He can't.
This afternoon.
And as Norris and Hamilton are fighting, they're falling away from the lead. Falling a little bit back into the clutches of Charles Leclerc there in the Ferrari. What's that flying around in the middle of the racetrack?
So far, I'd say plan A at the moment.
Copy.
Well, with all the trees that overhang the circuit here, Martin, we see a lot of leaves, but is there a branch as well, or even a bit of debris? I don't know.
I wonder if it was off the Alfa Romeo, but I hadn't seen it in earlier laps where we saw sort of confetti of what looked like carbon fibre in the track. Not good news.
Certainly not. Verstappen hasn't got DRS. He's over a second behind Daniel Ricciardo. Ricciardo might just breathe a little more easily down the straight as he heads towards the first chicane, the Redafulo chicane. Hamilton has got DRS, and that's propelling him along and keeping him out of the clutches of Charles Leclerc, who's now within 2 seconds of Lewis Hamilton. He too, like the top three, is on the medium compound tyre. Then comes Sergio Perez, whose last lap was about half a second quicker than Charles Leclerc, so he's certainly got pace in the other Red Bull. Carlos Sainz runs 7th ahead of Lance Stroll, who's having a decent race for Aston Martin, and then Fernando Alonso is 2 seconds behind him, and Valtteri Bottas, who is catching Fernando Alonso, and on the last lap was half a second quicker than the two-time world champion.
Yeah, he's in a handy 5th place, doesn't he, Charles Leclerc? Just 8.6 seconds off the lead.
Started 5th, still 5th, but with plenty more to come, I'm sure, for Charles Leclerc.
Next up for Valtteri Bottas, Fernando Alonso.
Esteban Ocon and Sebastian Vettel going into the Della Roggia chicane. Vettel really been in the wars today. His struggle started when he was overtaken by his teammate and he then lost another 3 places as Lance Stroll nipped it on the inside. But that was proper wheel banging with Esteban Ocon there, and I dare say Vettel won't be happy.
He gave me no space on the outside. He pushed me off the track. I think he saw.
Told you.
Yeah, you've got to leave a car's width. And, yeah, Sebastian's earned the right there. His axle, front axle, yeah, that's a misdemeanor there from Ocon. Vettel's front axle was beyond the rear axle of the Alpine at one point, and that, unsurprisingly...
Well, I could have might as well taken himself off.
And unsurprisingly, it's being noted for the stewards.
Well, Esteban Ocon, not sure if he looked in his mirrors or not, but with that James Bond branding on the side of the Aston Martin, he should have been expecting him.
Yes, indeed. So, Hamilton now 7 seconds off the lead. This phase tucked up behind Norris, who's struggling with his tyres a bit. This phase is not a particularly good one, the last 2 or 3 laps, but as you pointed out, a couple
but you do get the advantage of the toe as well, and there goes Verstappen, but he's
Yeah, you see that radio from Ricciardo, the limitation is the rear tyres. So they're starting to think about pit stops on the McLaren pit wall. Around 5 laps from now, you might start to see some action. They know that they're going to challenge Verstappen for the win. They do still want the win. They are going for the win. It would be such a great one for Daniel Ricciardo. And, well, if Ricciardo stayed up late to watch Emma Raducanu triumph in New York, then, Crofty, surely Australia can stay up late to watch what Daniel Ricciardo can do. I know it's approaching midnight in Sydney, but stay with us, everybody, because I think at least a podium, and they are still going for the win.
Forget about staying up late and thinking about work tomorrow if you're down under. Just don't go into work tomorrow. If Daniel Ricciardo wins this race, that is cause for a national celebration. Surely McLaren leading more laps today than they have done in the last 9 years since Lewis Hamilton left the team. The team that hasn't won since Jenson Button at Interlagos in 2012.
Yeah, I'm going to start sliding.
Understood. Same message from Daniel just now.
So is it time for Verstappen and Ricciardo to come into the pits, Martin, and where could they come back out into the race, do you think?
Well, they'll be out in front of the Stroll-Bottas fight, and he wouldn't want to be stuck behind Valtteri Bottas at the moment, would he? But the undercut is not especially powerful here, so with a 7.3 second advantage, well, Verstappen's got a 6.2 second advantage over Hamilton. They can afford to react a lap later if Mercedes were to pit Hamilton.
Be ahead of them when they come back out onto the track. Well, Valtteri Bottas starting 19th on the grid, you think, well, he's not going to be playing wing Williams, George Russell's current teammate, and who will be teammate to Alex Albon for next season as he makes a welcome return back to Formula 1 racing.
Another solid race from Latifi here, up in P11 at the moment. And very, very representative lap times.
Didn't score points last time out in Zandvoort, but did get points in Belgium and Hungary.
Pace is super strong, you're matching the leaders.
And he is now 1.3 seconds behind Lance Stroll. So in the next couple of laps, he's got the opportunity to pounce at the Aston Martin. So is it... That's the conundrum on the pit wall, and it might be a late decision here. Could they bring a Verstappen and Ricciardo in now to cut off any threat of coming out behind Valtteri Bottas, who will be going much longer on those tyres?
Yeah, they've got enough. They've got enough in the system at the moment. They're 27 seconds ahead of Bottas. So they've got a little bit of slack there that they can take up yet. Ted, what can you tell us?
Ricciardo's been on the radio saying the rears are really starting to take quite a hit now, being reassured by the McLaren pit wall, saying, look, it's the same for everybody. But if I was Red Bull and I fancy being a bit cheeky, I'd send my mechanics out into the pit lane and make McLaren think that I was pitting Verstappen. Of course, they'd come in and pit Ricciardo, because that's Ricciardo's best chance to pit at the same time with a 1 second lead than Verstappen. And then I'd say, oh, sorry, we changed our mind, gone back in and let Max go.
But of course, Ted, that is completely against the rules, and you're not allowed to do that. 2 seconds.
And mode 7. Mode 7.
I didn't click anything with the overtake, so why is it going lower?
We're looking into it, hence the changes.
Paul di Resta monitoring that at Sky Race Control. Mode 7, Paul, any idea? Are you an expert on modes?
I'm not a mode, but I'm assuming it's to do with just the recharge and just trying to put an attack on. It looks like Hamilton's kind of stabilised, isn't he? And he's a bit stuck, so a bit surprising that nobody go forward and Bottas yet can pick his way through the traffic.
He is certainly doing that. Esteban Ocon, in his move on Sebastian Vettel, has picked up a 5-second time penalty to be served when he comes in for his pit stop. One of 2 5-second time penalties that have been dished out by the stewards so far.
But your lap times are still as good as anyone.
Yep, understood. I think this is the pace for a bit.
Tom Stallard, Daniel Ricciardo's race engineer, celebrated his 43rd birthday yesterday with a fine 3rd place in the sprint. Valtteri Bottas won it, went to the back of the grid. Ricciardo started on the front row and overtook Max Verstappen at the start here, so the birthday celebrations might just continue on as his man leads this race by 1.5 seconds now from this man, Max Verstappen.
Ooh, a lock up there.
That'd be where that extra 0.5 seconds came from in terms of the gap.
Yeah, so locked his left front. Obviously, as your tyres wear, they start to struggle under braking as well. As
back out.
Understood.
Yeah, I have more time than I gained by cutting.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah, you've got to hope you don't damage underneath the car, but...
to have a bit of an effect on those in the top 3 that might want to be pitting. For instance, if Lando Norris wanted to pit, well, he wouldn't get out ahead of Valtteri Bottas the way it's looking currently. We're on board with the Mercedes of Valtteri Bottas through the Parabolica. He's got DRS in his battle with Lance Stroll. Mercedes power, of course, for both cars. You can see the Mercedes Works team, pursued by the helicopter in the background, has got an almighty lot of pace down that main straight. And Valtteri Bottas now dares get up into 8th place. So I said it was coming in 3 laps. That's exactly when it happened. And now the charge is on in clean air for Valtteri Bottas to really start to make a nuisance for the top 3 in this race.
So Verstappen running off the track is noted. They'll have a look to see if he gained any time there against Ricciardo in terms, and you'd have to say he's further behind than he was, because he's out of DRS range now. 1.4 seconds of drip. And Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Bottas is finding
That's perfect, absolutely perfect. I can't believe is Verstappen in. Surely not, Crofty.
No,
surely he's gone through. So, but Red Bull were just out, just covering if they needed to. But that was excellent. So that was McLaren avoiding Verstappen doing the undercut.
Right. So out comes Daniel Ricciardo behind the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. Got the grip, especially out of these slow corners. What can he do?
Keep the pressure on. It wasn't a super quick stop from McLaren.
Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez, and he's still waiting. Is Max Verstappen?
before he gets anywhere near Bottas anyway. So awful pit stop there, and it couldn't have come at a worse time.
Well, Max Verstappen extended his championship lead with a sprint yesterday and is now facing a deficit by the time we leave Monza. But Hamilton, leading this race at the moment, has still got to make the one expected pit stop. How long do they keep him out on the track? He's lapping in the mid-126s at the moment. It's decent pace. Daniel Ricciardo, who was our race leader before the pit stops.
Norris ahead of you, Norris ahead.
Yeah, I can see that.
I'll leave you to it.
Yeah, just come on the radio whenever it's critical, but...
Verstappen wants to be left alone as Hamilton now does come in to the pits. And that's is a little bit slow as well, but not half as slow as it was for Max Verstappen. 4.2 seconds for Hamilton in his pit stop. And I know they've changed the procedures at the pit stops, but we're not expecting times to be that much slower, maybe by a couple of tenths. Hamilton comes out onto the racetrack now. And is he going to be ahead of Lando Norris? That's the big key. No, he's not. And there's Max Verstappen right behind Hamilton into the first chicane. Once again, it's wheel to wheel. Hamilton and Verstappen. And this time Verstappen and Hamilton have crashed out. And they are both out. As Hamilton came from his pit stop, rejoined the racetrack. Lando Norris was ahead. And in their desperation to stay ahead and to get ahead, the two championship protagonists have taken each other out of the Italian Grand Prix.
What a bizarre incident. Absolutely bizarre. And Lewis is trying to get out of there, look.
That's what you get when you don't leave the space.
Verstappen, his car's not just beached, but it's wedged into the gravel.
It might be coming down to earth a little bit if Lewis can find any purchase in the gravel there to reverse the car out. Unsurprisingly, safety car deployed. Lewis has got damage on his roll hoop, look.
Hamilton's trying to get out of that gravel. You can see he's kept the engine running. Verstappen walks away.
Switch off the engine, please, Lewis.
Well, it's been brewing all season, this fantastic title scrap between Verstappen and Hamilton. They have come to blows on more than one occasion. This, though, the first time they've both taken each other out of the race. And we'll see a few more replays as behind the safety car now. We have the pit stops. Out in front was Charles Leclerc. And Charles Leclerc, you see, the Ferrari fans are going absolutely wild here, and so they should, because taking his pit stop behind the safety car will do Charles Leclerc no end of good. He's in second place behind Ricciardo, who's back out in front again. Perez, third on the field, well, behind now Lando Norris, sorry. So there we go. Into the first chicane, Norris and Perez. I'm assuming Perez served his pit stop. And then comes Carlos Sainz, Valtteri Bottas up to 6, Ocon, Russell, Kubica and Stroll.
Yeah, Leclerc up into second place.
Yeah.
And, wow, what will the stewards think of that? Obviously, Max trying to go around the outside. He had a chance there. It was with that slightly slow pit stop of Lewis's, it brought Max, with the lead that we know he had of around 6 seconds, it brought him right into play, didn't it? Yeah. And so much into play, they've tripped over each other. But I'm trying to remember an incident like that where one car just literally climbs up the front of another and stays there.
Well, this is back to Prost and Senna days, isn't it? Into the chicane at Suzuka. Yep. And the animosity that went with that. Max Verstappen's got a head start as he walks back to the pits. I would imagine that's quite a good thing to keep both of these drivers apart for a while, because both will be blaming each other. Let us have a little look then at what happened. Hamilton on the right-hand side, coming out of the pit lane, moves across. Did Verstappen have enough space in the initial part of that chicane? And then did he try and get a bit cheeky in the second part?
Max hasn't done anything wrong there. It was fair enough to go around the outside. Lewis can't cross over until the white line finishes. See, Max's car hit the rollover hoop of Lewis's car. Yeah. That's where the damage has come from.
He hits the sausage curb as well. That's what throws him back into the path of Lewis and then up into the air when his car makes contact with the Mercedes.
Look at this. Look, and there we go, across the top of the rollover hoop does its job there for...
and the halo too.
And the halo. And then the tyre... Yeah, I think Lewis got... Obviously, Lewis's rear wing, no wonder Bono told him to switch it off. The rear wing's broken anyway. And that was a scary moment
even
there.
With the halo, Martin, look at the rear right tyre of Max Verstappen's Red Bull rubbing against the crash helmet of Lewis Hamilton by the looks of it. And Hamilton certainly trying to get as low in his cockpit as he possibly could.
Wow, that was a very, very near miss there for Lewis Hamilton.
They're going to be talking about this incident for a long, long time to come. They really are, and it's an incident, well, as every race ticks on towards Abu Dhabi, that has huge ramifications for a title race. Two teams that aren't exactly best of friends, Red Bull and Mercedes. Two drivers that have a healthy respect for each other, but they know they need to seize every opportunity that comes their way on the track, and it just heightens and intensifies this wonderful scrap that we're seeing this year. But we don't want to see this too often, with both drivers taking each other out.
I believe, I think they'll go down as a racing incident. I believe Verstappen had the right to go around the outside, and they've just met in the middle there. They were both on the racetrack.
It's going to be investigated after the race, that incident. And after the race, I'm sure we'll hear from Toto Wolff and from Christian Horner as well. And hopefully both drivers and their views on it, as Hamilton makes his way back to the Mercedes garage. Ricciardo leads this race, still behind the safety car from Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris. Leclerc, a big winner and a big gainer in this, was running in 5th place, is now up to the podium spot when we get going again. Perez 4th, Sainz 5th, Bottas up to 6th.
Yeah, Bottas right up there was in 6th place, but wow. Max wasn't exactly going over to check, see if Lewis was okay, was he? He was so disgruntled with that pit stop, with that incident.
So, Verstappen still hasn't finished in the top 4 at Monza. And Lewis Hamilton has his first retirement, his first DNF in 63 starts. You go back to Austria 2018 for the last time that Lewis Hamilton retired from a race, and it's only his second retirement since Malaysia 2016. That was 84 starts ago. Ted, down to you.
Well, I'm going to see if the duo are going to come past me in the pit lane, but we should start a new saying, Crofty. Sprint race on Saturday, Max and Lewis collide on Sunday, because that's what we've had again after Silverstone. You're right about the people who pitted. Charles Leclerc, the big gainer of the safety car, into P2 now, ahead of Lando Norris. So Norris missed out. Sergio Perez also pitted under the safety car, as did Carlos Sainz, P5 at the moment, straight behind Perez. Bottas did too, as did Lance Stroll. Sebastian Vettel pitted again under the safety car. I'll go and find out exactly what was that about. And Esteban Ocon did, but had a very long pit stop as they struggled with the right rear.
Well, they've changed, as I said, the pit stop procedures, and I wonder if that had any bearing whatsoever on the slow stop for Verstappen or for Hamilton, who's got a bit of security and a bit of muscle alongside him. Vin Diesel's here with the Mercedes team this weekend. They could have sent him down to walk back with Lewis. As we watch it again, should either of them have backed out, Martin, or would that have been the wrong thing to do as they were battling so hard?
Lewis left him a car's width on the way in, but then I think Max had earned the right to some space there.
But did Lewis back out at this?
That's where the big, hot, sticky tyres, when you put the two faces together like that, and it very much plays into McLaren's hands, doesn't it? But I think if you can argue anything, Lewis didn't leave him a car's width around the outside. He was, you know, almost fully alongside, as you can see from that angle. Yeah. And then this is almost too scary to watch after this.
It's the roll hoop, the safety structure, and the halo very much doing its job. But as you can see, still contact between the tyre and Lewis Hamilton's head.
And the good thing is Max hasn't got any power going on. I remember Senna landed on my shoulder once in Formula 3 and had the engine revving and absolutely terrified me at Alton Park. But luckily Max's rear wheels weren't going round.
Once Lewis squeezed him, Martin, and Max got onto the sausage curb, he was going to get launched, and that the stewards will be looking at that saying, well, you know, what did you think was going to happen, Max, and what did you think was going to happen, Lewis? And these are the questions that will be asked after the race. Paul DeResta's at Sky Race Control.
And when I rewind it, that's the big thing I look at it. It was the oscillations by Max having enough space going across the curb that then bounced him into Lewis's tyre, and then it elevated the car. I don't like these sausage curbs on the apex of corners. I don't like cars sliding across, hitting them out of control. And in that scenario, you can see, I mean, horrible to see. So I think they probably have to look at both aspects of that.
And looking at Max Verstappen. Ted Kravitz.
He's not even, he's so furious. Hearing the sounds of Grand Prix cars going round and him not in the race, he doesn't even want to go to the Red Bull pit stand and see Christian Horner. He's going back into his garage, which I think you can see at the moment, Crofty, and to calm himself down. Is he going to even exchange something with Helmut Marko?
Yep.
A little bit.
Yeah, he's just said to Helmut Marko, he doesn't leave me any space.
I mean, Hamilton, how much was Hamilton thinking, well, you didn't leave me much space on lap 1 at the second chicane, so I'm going to do the same to you, son.
Why is this important?
Because wasn't it?
Yeah, why it's important, Ted, is because if the stewards do decide it's one driver or the other's fault, they'll probably take a grid penalty into the next round.
So, after a few swings during the course of this afternoon, where at one stage it looked like Lewis Hamilton was going to claw back the 5 points that he was adrift in the championship with Max Verstappen, with 8 rounds to go. And I'm assuming we are going to get 8 rounds to go, but that might not be a definite given the state of flux that the calendar might be in at the moment. With 8 rounds to go, there will be a 5-point difference between Verstappen and Hamilton.
We're going to have our chance on the track, so we've just got to use our head here. Still a long way to go.
And the safety car is ending, so we'll talk about the championship after this race, and there'll be a lot of talk going on into the paddock, so don't switch over. Simon Lazenby and the team will be talking to as many the key figures as is possible.
We've got to go on maximum attack.
And it's safety car coming in at the end of this lap.
Daniel Ricciardo's won 7 Grand Prix. He knows what to do. He knows how to win this race.
And he has survived leading Grand Prix with a safety car restart. Now he's gone. Charles Leclerc's gone with him. Lando Norris has certainly gone with Charles Leclerc. They're watching on at Ferrari as round the parabolica we come, and going very wide again, Lando Norris. But that gets him a straight line and an earlier straight line down the straight as they all try and break the toe, and weaving about a bit is Daniel Ricciardo. Valtteri Bottas is making a move on Carlos Sainz. Lando Norris is making a move on Charles Leclerc. Ricciardo leads into turn 1. Leclerc and Norris, they make contact, but Charles Leclerc keeps that second place. Behind them comes Sergio Perez, then Carlos Sainz and Valtteri Bottas. 6th place for Bottas, then Stroll, Alonso, Russell and Latifi. And now, watching through the Curva Grande, brilliant move from Lando Norris, who's ahead of Charles Leclerc. It's McLaren 1-2 at Monza after the safety car.
Norris is completely fearless. It was on the grass at one point in the Curva Grande there. Absolute attack there. McLaren 1-2, as you say. McLaren versus Ferrari sounds familiar from a long time ago, doesn't it?
Yeah, look, we were talking about the championship battle, but don't forget the battle for 3rd in the championship as well. It's as keenly contested, trust me, and McLaren winning out on this occasion as Lando Norris gets past Charles Leclerc. There are fans here with Lando, you're in our hearts signs. There are a lot more fans who have Charles Leclerc in their hearts. The fans are loving this, we're loving this as well, and it's Daniel Ricciardo who leads them down the straight.
Lando, track limits, turn 11. That was our 2nd official warning, 2nd one.
So don't do it again, but it might just have helped him in that move with Leclerc after the safety car restart.
Yeah, he had a good long run, didn't he, around the outside of T11 into the pit straight, but the move was done going towards the 2nd chicane. Norris realises...
Here comes Valtteri Bottas, sorry Martin, and Carlos Sainz, and they were just crisscrossing each other. Has Bottas got ahead of Carlos Sainz into the Rettifilo chicane? Yes, he has. Valtteri Bottas from 19th on the grid is now up to 5th, and that's Sebastian Vettel in the wars once again. Antonio Giovinazzi just behind him, Robert Kubica ahead of him. And he's sandwiched now between the 2 Alphas as Sergio Perez trying to move on Charles Leclerc as into the De La Roggia chicane we go. Perez goes over the rumble strips and bounces back onto the track ahead of the Ferrari, who's coming at him into the 2 Lesmos.
He needs to give that place back to the Ferrari. He took the place off the track as he did yesterday. We've got a yellow flag out there. Norris realises that McLaren is very highly likely to win this race, and he wants it to be his McLaren. I think the stuff, you were right, it was leaves bouncing around earlier on, wasn't it?
Let us watch on board with the Haas. Oh dear, of Mick Schumacher. Now he might be banned him into the 2 Lesmos.
He needs to give that place back to the Ferrari. He took the place off the track as he did yesterday. We've got a yellow flag out there. Norris realises a McLaren is very highly likely to win this race, and he wants it to be his McLaren. I think the stuff, you were right, it was leaves bouncing around earlier on, wasn't it?
Let us watch on board with the Haas. Oh dear, of Mick Schumacher. Now, he might be very good friends with Sebastian Vettel, but the friendship gets tested when you do things like that. And eventually, Mick Schumacher spun around after making contact with his teammate, Nikita Mazepin. This is the Perez incident. Is that rejoining the track safely?
He didn't leave me any room.
When you go off the track, you're told to rejoin the track in a safe manner.
Yeah, he completed the move off the road, didn't he? So I know the team have been asking, do we need to give this back?
Valtteri Bottas got one Ferrari on the previous lap. He's going to go and try and get a second Ferrari on this particular lap. Leclerc brakes a lot later and maintains his advantage, stays ahead of Bottas, but immediately, unlike Perez yesterday, gives the place to Valtteri Bottas. You can't leave the track and gain a lasting advantage, so he immediately gave that place back, but he's fighting it now with Valtteri Bottas just ahead into the Delia Roggia chicane, brakes later and holds on to that fourth place. There are scraps going on here, there and everywhere here at Monza.
I thought Leclerc had lost that one. That was a good effort to recover that position. But if Bottas can clear this Ferrari quickly, you know, he's got every bit as good a chance to win this Grand Prix too.
He said before the start of this race, my aim today is to finish on the podium. Well, he's only a couple of spots off it as it stands. Paul di Resta, let's head to you.
I was sitting there waiting on you coming to me across the end. They came on the radio and they said they're happy for him to keep the position at the moment, but I'm thinking worst case it'll be a 5-second penalty, but he'll be further up the road, so that's probably why Red Bull have said just carry on as you are.
So wily old campaigner is Sergio Perez, and he's at the moment in the podium plate. Corner that Valtteri Bottas has moved.
Oh, it's not allowed to go off, and then you get a toll from that.
Has moved past before on the previous lap where he lost out.
Yeah, so what Bottas is saying, look, he went off and then got a slipstream from me, and you know, he gained a lasting advantage is the key phrase that we hear from the stewards. Perez looking pretty racy in there as well. 3.8 seconds, 4.1 seconds covers the top 5.
And we're on lap 34 of 53 here in this enthralling Italian Grand Prix. The first Grand Prix that Hamilton and Verstappen have both failed to finish a Grand Prix which they've both competed in. First time when they've both taken part, both have had a DNF to their name. It's down the straight we come once more. Sergio Perez has got DRS to try and close up on Lando Norris.
Look at Bottas's time, 1.3 seconds quicker than the leader, Daniel Ricciardo. Valtteri Bottas at 1:24.8, fastest lap. He's coming at them.
He's taken the pain at the start, Valtteri Bottas, by running the hard compound tyre. He's now getting the gain by running the medium tyre to the finish. He is on much fresher, or faster, I should say, tyres than the top 3 are. He started on the hards. His teammate Lewis Hamilton started on the hards as well. They got the hard work out of the way. The mediums really, really helping them. So he's right in touch with Perez. Perez is right in touch with Norris. And Norris wants to get a bit closer to this man, the leader, Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah, and they will need to. They'll see the Mercedes coming. I mean, now we've seen Bottas in free air, what his pace is.
Yeah, I need Daniel to pick up the pace a bit. He's driving too slow.
Well, I did say he needs to get a bit closer.
Now we've seen the true pace of Bottas in clear air. You put your money on him now. You'd put your money on him for the Grand Prix victory. With the kind of speed he's had down the pit straight, and with, as you say, on the medium compound tyres now, the only man in the top 11 on medium compound tyres.
You'd have seen on the graphic there, last McLaren 1-2, Canada, 2010, when Lewis Hamilton finished ahead of Jenson Button. Here in Monza, 2021, it's Daniel Ricciardo ahead of Lando Norris. Then Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas. Will those faster, in theory, tyres make a difference for Bottas? Can he get the overtakes done early enough?
So with Bottas looking quick, we think the best thing is to be as quick as you can to the end of the race and just pull a gap on these cars behind if possible.
before the hard tyre takes over as the better race tyre potentially at the end of the race.
Yeah.
And what do McLaren do? I've got to ask this question, Martin. If you're Zach Brown and you're Andreas Seidel, what do you say to the two drivers in the closing stages here? They're on for a 1-2. Do you hold station or do you let them race?
I think they've got a bigger issue than that, Crofty, to be honest, with Bottas's pace. But if they feel that Bottas is coming at them and Norris is quicker, I half expected that was the conversation we were about to hear. But at the end of the day, what they're saying to Ricciardo is, don't leave any life in those tyres. Just go for it now. Just go for it.
They're a couple of laps older than Lando Norris is as well. As you can see, 13 laps they've been on, 11 laps for Lando Norris, but some of those have been served behind the safety car. Ricciardo, 1:25.7 on the last lap. Norris, 1:26.2. So Ricciardo half a second faster, trying then to pull out a bit of a slightly longer gap behind Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas, separated by only 0.4 of a second when they cross the line.
That's a better lap, Daniel. Let's have those lap times if you can.
That's what they're going to need to win it.
What Bottas needs is exactly what Ricciardo's trying to do, and pull Lando Norris out of any DRS threat from Sergio Perez, and then Bottas can attack with a DRS himself.
Yeah, we saw earlier on in the race that the mediums weren't really going that well, the Bottas one, but of course they've burned off a lot of fuel since then. The track's rubbered in a little bit more. Track temperatures dropped 1 degree, so it could be a very handy tyre at the end. But it was surprising, wasn't it, when we saw the acceleration when we were behind Perez there. When you get the throttle on at least a car's length in front of whoever's behind you, just how it yo-yos around.
And here is interesting news from the stewards room. Sergio Perez has been given a 5-second time penalty for leaving the track and gaining an advantage when he was tangling at the De La Roggia chicane, came back onto the track after going onto the runoff area. Well, he gained an advantage by doing that, say the stewards. He's been pushing his luck a little bit this weekend. Finally, his luck's run out.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't give it back straight away. It was so clear.
So, that 5-second time penalty, though, will be taken after the race. Yeah. They'll add it to his race time, which is not what Valtteri Bottas wants to hear, because he quite like Perez to be 5 seconds behind him. So, look, as it stands at the moment, that is going to still thwart Valtteri Bottas to a certain extent, because he just can't get past the Red Bull, but it is going to push Perez down the final rankings.
Yeah, how quickly Bottas can get past Perez, I think, is going to be key in terms of what he can achieve this afternoon. He's tantalisingly, he's only 2.3 seconds off the lead in P4 there.
And come on, Valtteri Bottas, we know that you can produce this sort of performance. We haven't seen it enough in his Mercedes career, but now, with his Mercedes career coming to an end, can Valtteri Bottas produce that real racer's race?
Okay, checker, we've had a 5-second penalty for that overtake on Leclerc. Elbows out, we're going to get that 5-second gap.
Norris has a penalty as well.
Negative, nothing for Norris yet.
Perez with a question mark in his tone there. Valtteri Bottas, 7 podiums in 2021. His last win, Russia 2020, where we go to the next race. It's almost a calendar year since Valtteri Bottas last stood on the top step of the podium, but he is definitely in the fastest car at the moment because of those medium compound tyres. But he's got Perez and Norris between him and the race leader Daniel Ricciardo, and look how much closer Charles Leclerc is getting to the action now.
Yeah, bizarrely there, Bottas now suddenly falling back a little bit into the clutches of Charles Leclerc, if anything.
Leclerc on that last lap, 0.7 of a second quicker than Valtteri Bottas. Behind Leclerc comes Carlos Sainz, his Ferrari teammate. Stroll runs 7th at the moment, ahead of Fernando Alonso in 8th. George Russell in the points for Williams in 9th, and Esteban Ocon is running 10th, just ahead of Nicholas Latifi, who was ahead of him before we had the safety car. Ted, to you.
I've been following the Ferraris. It was just that last lap. They'd actually fallen back. Leclerc and Sainz had fallen back from the top 4, but just now have found some pace, some speed on these hard tyres. I can't believe they weren't up to temperature, but anyway, they're not out of it yet, the Ferraris still going, and this Perez penalty is going to make them sing. They've already had a gift from Red Bull with that slow pit stop, then with the Max accident with Lewis, but McLaren, and they've got another gift. Red Bull have given McLaren another gift today.
Paul de Resta at Sky Race Control.
Yeah, just to go back on the Bottas thing, I mean, all the guys that were on the medium at the start were saying it was higher dig than he thought it was going to be, so I suspect Bottas is probably going to struggle more at the end, because he's went fairly fierce at them. We know Bottas, that's where he struggles with Hamilton, is being able to conserve the tyres that little bit longer and have them when he needs them.
And a 5-second time penalty, and probably a ticking off from his team principal Gunther Steiner for hitting his teammate, for Nikita Mazepin. We saw that a little earlier. So lap 40 then of 53 here at Monza, and if you're just joining us, we lost Yuki Tsunoda and Pierre Gasly pretty much right at the start. AlphaTauri in their home race have had one to forget, and then we lost Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton colliding with each other at the first turn as Hamilton came out from his pit stop. They took each other out of the race. They ended up in the gravel. Drivers walked back at a distance from each other to the pit lane, and we will see what the stewards say about that after this race. It will be investigated. Will that have any impact on the championship battle as we go to Russia? As it stands at the moment, Verstappen will be 5 points clear of Hamilton before that Sochi Grand Prix, and there's a Haas just dismantling the chicane.
Yeah, and given how we thought Mercedes would perform around here with Verstappen and Hamilton leaving with no points today, Verstappen with 2 points yesterday, I think that's effectively a net gain result there for Red Bull. I think they thought they were going to lose some points here to to Mercedes.
Do you think it's best for us if I stay like this, stay where I am? Lando, best for us where you are.
That is the team orders that says, Lando, don't try and overtake your teammate. And it is, obviously, best for McLaren, the 1-2. You remember back to Spa all those years ago, Damon Hill's message, Eddie, if you want to win this race, tell him not to attack me, tell him not to overtake me, and that seems to be a very similar theme here in Italy.
Yeah, and because Bottas has stalled out, hasn't he? He's stalled out in terms of that pace has just gone away. As Paul said, maybe he just took too much life out of those tyres too early. A little bit of graining on the right rear, you can see.
Well, this was another challenge by Valtteri Bottas, breaking deep into the corner and locking up as a result. And we've got some double yellow flags being waved at the moment. In the early part of this lap, DRS disabled as well along that main straight. For what? I'm not quite sure.
Schumacher's showing right out back. That's probably where it was anyway, but...
the cars are all moving around. Just wondering why we had the DRS is enabled now anyway. Maybe the marshals were just replacing one of those polystyrene blocks that Nikita Mazepin had taken out of the chicane a few moments ago. Daniel Ricciardo leads 1.2 seconds, the gap to Lando Norris. 1.1 seconds back to Sergio Perez, so he hasn't got any DRS to attack with down the main straight. Valtteri Bottas has, but he's too far back to make an impression on Sergio Perez. But it's quite key now that Perez stays within the DRS train, as it were, under that 1 second to give him the pace to stave off any threat from Valtteri Bottas. Leclerc runs 5th. We can head down to Ted.
Fernando Alonso isn't done with today yet, Crofty. He's putting some pressure as much as he can on Lance Stroll ahead of him. Stroll holding position in P7 very well. And George Russell right behind Alonso, keeping pace with the Alpine and fending off Esteban Ocon behind him. Well done, Nicholas Latifi as well, P11. But that's mature from Lando Norris, isn't it? He's got a little bit of an edge on tyre life, hasn't he, from Daniel Ricciardo. 2 laps younger tyres. He could have had a go at his teammate, but very mature for him to say, look, let's get the best team result possible.
And am I right in thinking, Ted, that not only would Daniel Ricciardo love to be on the podium for McLaren, celebrating with his team that he's joined, doesn't he also get a NASCAR drive out of standing on the podium with McLaren? Didn't he have a bet with Zach Brown?
Wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, car number 3, of course. He loves his NASCAR, does Daniel Ricciardo. But wow, I mean, there was never any doubt. They weren't about to swap the positions, were they? Even with Perez hounding them from behind, they wouldn't take this win away from Ricciardo after the season he's had, surely. They weren't going to. And anyway, Perez's penalty now means they don't have to do all that nonsense.
It was a very clever way that Lando phrased that question.
Sergio Perez locks up. Valtteri Bottas is thinking about a move. We've seen Red Bull and Mercedes come a cropper at that corner before, and Bottas backs out of it.
Yeah, it was a clever... Look, is it best for us, basically, if you don't let me through?
Well,
in other words, think about letting me through.
Bottas is trying to get through here. Past the Curva Grande we go. He's ahead, going into the Della Roggia chicane. Can he make it stick? Perez is going to fight him back on the exit. He went deep, Valtteri Bottas. Thought he had the move. Perez let him go. Knew he got a bit too deep and then took that third place back again.
Pivotal for this race, and he'll be cursing himself because he had the move well done there, didn't he? And over, he overtook him twice effectively and got in too deep on the brakes.
Let's have a look at it again. As a gap opens on the inside of the Curva Grande, which seems to be a very nice place for overtaking on this sunny Sunday afternoon. And at that point, Valtteri's like, yep, done this, done this, done this. Oh no, more brakes.
Gave it a little tweak of brake bias, didn't he? Went to 60 on his wheel there. Not much. Not for long.
Ready yourself again, Toto, as we have a car that has stopped here, and it's Nikita Mazepin by the side of the track. Now, there is an opening there to push that Haas back, but he has stopped, and they're waving the double yellow flag. So that means no overtaking at all going down towards turn 1.
So the pack, because of the safety car, the pack are all pretty much on the same part of the racetrack. They're going to have to put marshals out there.
Virtual safety car.
Yeah, that's just what I was going to say. They have to put people out into a very fast part of the racetrack, and the only way to cover it is like that, which...
So it's at the Ascari chicane where they need to push it back in. They'll do that pretty quickly. The virtual safety car just totally neutralizes the race, doesn't concertina the pack together like a normal safety car would. And this is what happened to Nikita Mazepin. His engine losing power, and he just pulled off to the side of the road when he could find somewhere safe to do so. So mechanical failure for Nikita Mazepin takes him out of this race, and he joins Gasly, Tsunoda and Hamilton and Verstappen as the 5 retirees from this Italian Grand Prix.
They'll be switching this off quite quickly, won't they? And now the car's clear. There we go.
It's ending, and then they'll get a lights that will go green on the Marshall panels at the side of the track and on their dashboards as well. Now it can go green. Sergio Perez reacted very quickly to racing resuming, as did that man there, Charles Leclerc, behind Valtteri Bottas, hugging the white line as he does through the Parabolica, or to give it its name for 2021, the Curva Alboreto. 20 years since we lost the late, great Michele Alboreto, 3 times a winner for Ferrari, and they've renamed that corner in his honour with a beautiful picture on the outside of the entry into that Parabolica as well.
Yeah, I was there the day Michele died. We were testing Le Mans cars, a straight line testing. It was so sad. And so unlucky for him with a tyre blowout.
5-time winner in Formula 1, 3 with Ferrari. And the 2 scarlet red Ferraris running 5th and 6th at the moment. We see Kubica and Vettel getting quite close to each other, a little bit further down the field. Kubica running in place of Kimi Raikkonen as Raikkonen self-isolates after testing positive for COVID, and he's now just behind the Aston Martin then of Sebastian Vettel. No further action in that incident earlier in this race between Vettel and Mick Schumacher when they came together at turn 1. Right, back out in front, and by now 2 seconds. The easiest he's had to breathe, I'm sure, throughout this entire race for Daniel Ricciardo from Lando Norris, and Norris is pulling clear of Sergio Perez as well. And because Perez now can't use DRS...
Daniel has been told to try and pull away. Let's go with him.
Yeah, that's much better that way.
Whoa. Are they sure they want to be putting Daniel Ricciardo's face on the podium just yet? We haven't got to the checkered flag because Perez hasn't got within a second of Lando Norris. He can't use DRS. The man behind him, Valtteri Bottas, can. And this now, as he locks up again, Valtteri Bottas, this now, Martin Brundle, is his chance to try and get past that Red Bull.
It is, but he's got to be less scrappy than that, hasn't he, Valtteri Bottas? So, yeah, both McLarens with personal best times there in the low 1 minute 25s. They've looked like they've got it covered, don't they? And with Bottas still holed up behind Perez. Perez at the moment would be ahead of Lance Stroll, so would move with his 5-second penalty. Will move back to P6.
Daniel Ricciardo leading, as we said, for the first time since Abu Dhabi in 2018. His last race for the Red Bull team. Moved to McLaren, has had his struggles this season with braking issues on that McLaren car. Comes to a track where braking is not only fundamental, Martin, but one of the toughest of the season. He seems to have sorted those issues out this weekend.
Yeah, you can see the two McLarens harvesting down there. So this is a replay then of the championship contenders tripping over each other.
I don't know if Lewis would have known the risk he was running, not giving Verstappen a bit more space, because as soon as Verstappen hits that sausage curb, he's going to bounce into the air.
Yeah, and interestingly, his left rear wheel was actually spinning around, wasn't it?
Yeah.
With the differential there, whether something was broken, the drive shaft was broken on the other side, the tyre that was literally parked on Lewis's head there wasn't rotating.
Big day in the championship battle, and at the end of it, they still are separated by 5 points.
Yeah, and it was that long pit stop that really was the beginning of that drama, wasn't it?
11 seconds for Verstappen.
Yeah, that put Verstappen out of sync on where he'd been running in the Grand Prix, and eventually alongside Lewis, who, you know, had his stop would have been normal, he would have been clearly into the first chicane as well for good measure.
8 seconds faster for Red Bull, we wouldn't have had the issue. Second faster for Mercedes, we wouldn't have the issue. But this is why it's a team sport, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone has to play their parts over the course of a Grand Prix. And that's why you win as a team and you lose as a team. And winning as a team at the moment, McLaren, who have suffered their lean years in the past few years, their relationship with Honda that was going to bring them back to championship and race winning contention. It just never really materialized. Honda went off to AlphaTauri and Red Bull, and Honda have had success with their new teams. This year they've taken the Mercedes power unit. That's given them a much
George Russell and Esteban Ocon are squabbling over 9th and 10th. Both of them in the points. Ted's got news.
I mean, deep within the McLaren DNA, it's a team who knows how to win world championships and races and is very used to doing it. But as you say, this is a new group. I'm just watching everybody on the McLaren pit wall. Zach Brown is sitting down, just keeps adjusting his face mask slightly nervously. Will Joseph, Lando's engineer, just sitting there and passively looking at the data. Andreas Seidel can't bear to sit down. He's standing with his head, with his fist on his forehead, just sort of looking elsewhere. Andrea Stella, ex-Ferrari, he knows what he's doing. He's just taking it all into his stride. Randy Singh, the strategist as well, seems fairly chilled about it. But hairs are getting greyer every lap that goes on. What a story.
170 Grand Prix since their last win. It will be the second longest interval between victories by an ever-present constructor. Ligier, Canada 81 to Monaco 96, went 231 races in between wins. And McLaren, well, this will be the second longest gap for an ever-present constructor. For that man there, Lando Norris, even though second place might be a little bit of a disappointment if his team have won, it would still be the first time he'd finished as runner-up in a Formula One Grand Prix, and he's certainly played his part in this. Asked Daniel Ricciardo, can we just go a little bit faster? I've got Perez breathing down my neck. Ricciardo has responded with that, and they now have a 1.5 seconds gap at least from Norris to Perez. Bottas still trying to fight his way past that Red Bull, but it's been so tricky for him. He's locked up a couple of times, thought he got it done into turn one and then into the De La Roggia chicane just a few laps ago. Perez, though, as Bottas went too deep on the brakes, came back at him. Leclerc and Sainz running 5th and 6th for Ferrari. Much better 2021 for the home race than it was last year. both cars retiring from that race. Lance Stroll has not finished higher than 8th so far this season. He's on for 7th place at the moment. Behind him comes Fernando Alonso, and then that scrap Ted was talking about between George Russell and Esteban Ocon for the final points places. Nicholas Latifi just in touching distance, but he's got Sebastian Vettel breathing down his neck. And here comes Valtteri Bottas again. Just seems all a little bit forlorn. He needs to be 3.5 tenths behind Perez as they cross the line. Then he seems to have a chance.
Yeah, it's curious, isn't it, with Bottas? I mean, he seemed to be able to breeze past anything. He came up behind there for a while, and then put in the 1 minute 24.8, which remains the fastest lap by some margin, actually, and then just completely stalled out.
He's going to finish on the podium as it stands at the moment, though, because Perez has got that 5-second penalty handed out by the stewards, and Perez will become...
All we've got.
He'll become the second Red Bull driver to lose a podium here at Monza. Remember, Max Verstappen lost 3rd back in 2018. 5 seconds on Perez would take him behind Carlos Sainz at the moment. That's why he's getting the message from Hugh Bird to say, give it everything.
Yeah, he needs another second or so to make sure he can finish 5th and drop down from his current 3rd with that penalty. You either have to take it at the next pit stop, or of course there isn't another pit stop expected, or it's added on at the end of the Grand Prix.
Who's your driver of the day today? Vote closes in 2 laps. I dare say a lot of people have been on their various tablets, phones, computers, etc. in the suburbs of Perth, Western Australia, voting for Daniel Ricciardo. I cannot wait to see his smile when he gets out of the car, should things stay the same as they are.
Yeah, brilliant start. He's been faultless out front, hasn't he? Worked the restarts well. Lando Norris was supremely brave on that restart up against Charles Leclerc. Very, very impressive indeed. So the 2 McLaren drivers have been given the car to win the race with, and they've been brilliant with it. But yeah, of course, we lost Hamilton, we lost Verstappen. That's the name of the game.
Well, you've got to take advantage of whatever comes your way. The fact is that when Verstappen and Hamilton took each other out, Ricciardo and Norris, were ahead of them anyway. It's not like Ricciardo is going to... it's not like Ricciardo is on course to win this race because Verstappen and Hamilton have crashed out. He's done his bit by taking Verstappen at the start and then driving a faultless race so far. Meanwhile, for allegedly failing to slow under yellow flags, Lance Stroll is under investigation by the stewards. That might be decided after the race, but he's under investigation as well. Lap 52, we're on for our race leader. 2 more laps then for Ricciardo and for Norris, for Perez and for Bottas, who now hasn't got DRS and is falling back behind Sergio Perez. He'll take 3rd place on the podium, but could have been much, much more had he got the overtake done.
Yeah, if he'd have got past Perez in a hurry, I think he would have been in a very, very good position there to challenge the McLarens, but he didn't. He had the move done, but then outbraked himself into the 2nd chicane.
We have the 100-metre gold medalist from the Olympics waiting to wave the flag. The top sprinter in the world has seen the fast and furious Temple of Speed Italian Grand Prix at close quarters this afternoon. He's waiting to wave the checkered flag. As Ricciardo and Norris, starting 2nd and 3rd, are on course to finish 1st and 2nd, and it has just gone midnight, or approaching midnight in Sydney, in Australia. It'll be a little bit closer to midnight, I think, in Perth. The time difference is there, but I do hope Australia has stayed up for this, and I do hope whoever you're employed by is either going to give you the day off tomorrow or is going to let you come in a little bit later, because the celebrations, I'm sure, will be mighty for Daniel Ricciardo, who, and his new team, is within 3.6 miles now, Martin Brundle, of getting his first victory for them.
A very, very important victory for Ricciardo and for McLaren. Daniel's really struggled a little bit there, hasn't he? Lost his mojo, couldn't understand it, but this will certainly sort that out very quickly for him in the team.
It certainly will. Just 2/3 of a lap to go. McLaren, after all their struggles in recent years, that will be quickly forgotten. They've reverted back to Mercedes power. They've had the last 77 victories with Mercedes power. You're going to make that the last 78 in a few moments' time as well. The papaya back on the McLaren car. Emerson Fittipaldi, Formula One and McLaren legend. Two-time world champion, of course, in Formula One. He's there waiting to wave the two papaya cars home. Daniel Ricciardo leads Lando Norris. Ricciardo leading for the first time since Abu Dhabi in 2018. On course for his first victory since Monaco in 2018. He left Red Bull, he went to Renault, he's gone to McLaren. He's going to get the victory now. It's McLaren and Ricciardo that win the Italian Grand Prix. Lando Norris comes home to make it a 1-2 for the men from Woking. Sergio Perez comes home to take third on the road, but he drops down to fifth because of that 5-second time penalty. Bottas on the podium for an 8th time this season, ahead of Leclerc. Sainz, Stroll, Alonso, Russell and Ocon complete the top 10. Start the celebrations for McLaren. Ricciardo's done it.
And he scored an extra World Championship point for fastest lap.
Yeah! He won! But he did it! Yes! Yeah, boy! Yes!
What a moment for Daniel Ricciardo, for Zak Brown, and for everyone who plays a part in that McLaren team. An 8th Grand Prix win for the man from Perth, and a very special win as well. His first as a non-Red Bull driver. He grew up as a Red Bull young driver. McLaren's got their own young driver and superstar for the future today. Lando Norris coming home in second for his best ever finish in Formula One. And I really can't see anyone begrudging McLaren their day in the sun here in Monza.
Great day for McLaren, great day for Formula One actually in that respect. But yeah, they both pulled the pin on the last lap. Ricciardo with a 1:24.8, Norris with a 1:24.9. They had performance to spare as well. And as I said, Ricciardo just stealing that point.
Amazing. Strat 5.
Let's go, boys! Woo! Let's go! Vamos! Vamos! Get in there! Let's go! Woo!
Okay, mate.
Yes,
okay.
boys!
Strat.
He's not unhappy about finishing second then.
He's been on great form, hasn't he? I mean, it's not out of the question. He could have been on pole in Spa and actually ended up winning that race, Lando Norris, without the crash he had in the standing water at Eau Rouge and Raidillon.
Well, the crash we had today took out Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, and we will talk long about that, I'm sure, after the podium celebrations. Dare say this could be one of the happiest podiums we've seen of the season so far.
Deep down, I knew this was going to come. So, thanks for having my back, and for anyone who thought I left. I never left. Just moved aside for a while. Thanks, guys.
Nice touch. Perez did finish fifth. He was ahead of Sainz with his 5-second penalty. Stroll under investigation for potentially not slowing under the yellows in 7. 2 more World Championship points for George Russell and Williams.
And now we wait for Danny Rick to get out of his cockpit. I've just been sent a message from a friend of mine down under, says, I guarantee you, Crofty, we are all awake in Australia. As he stands on top of the halo and he rises to beat his chest as a race winner at McLaren for the first time. Daniel Ricciardo triumphant in Monza. Lando Norris is there with a big hug and the congratulations. And in the Drivers' Championship, Lando Norris just gains a little bit on Valtteri Bottas. 9 points the difference in the battle for third place at the moment. Daniel Ricciardo 8th now. in the championship, and he becomes the 5th driver to win in this 2021 season. There's his team boss, his team principal, Andreas Seidel, and Zak Brown, the CEO, who's masterminded McLaren's recovery, has put all the pieces together, and the jigsaw coming together very nicely.
Yeah, Zak's done a great job there, and so has Andreas since he joined the team, and galvanised, and all the talent, all the skill, all the resource was there, just needed pointing in the right direction.
Driver of the day, Daniel Ricciardo. Can't disagree with that at all. What a moment this is for McLaren as well. At the end, Martin, of a triple header, 3 intensive weeks for the boys and the girls and the crew and the garages back at base. It's relentless Formula One at the moment. This is exactly the kind of just the boost that they need. First win since Brazil 2012, and there is the Brazilian former world champion Emerson Fittipaldi. Apologies if you heard some bad language amongst the celebrations. It's high jubilation, and I think everyone has come out. Mark Norris giving Daniel Ricciardo a big hug and saying, well done, buddy. A stalwart of McLaren, Mark, for many, many years now. He's been through the highs and lows at that team. And, well, so has Daniel Ricciardo, the highs and lows all the way through this season. And this is a high that, did he really think was going to come at the start of this year?
Well, they had their chance today and they took it, didn't they? Get your crash helmet, get your skid lid off, Danny. We want to see that flip-top smile.
I don't think he can pull the crash helmet off because his smile's too big. It's too wide to get the helmet off.
The honey badger. Oh, we're going to see a shoey.
Well, there's a point.
Thanks,
Mega. Well deserved. Well deserved.
Listen, at the best of times, Martin, it's not the most hygienic thing on the planet, but these times, do we want to see a shoey? Of course we want to see a shoey. David Coulthard is conducting the interviews down there. He might be drinking from the shoey. You never know. He's got Valtteri Bottas with him now.
Valtteri, not a bad weekend for you. First in the sprint race yesterday, 3rd today from the back of the grid. Talk us through the race.
Yeah, I mean, starting from the back, it's never easy, and I told the team that I'm going to be on the podium today, so we did. So I'm glad we could get more points than Red Bull, and yeah, I think otherwise we maximized from where I started, and obviously shame with the crash with Lewis and Max, we lost some points there, but from my side, yeah, it was good fun.
Did you mentioned that crash? Did you see it at all on the big screens?
I didn't see really what happened. So.
Okay, well, I think I'll be curious to hear your opinion after it, because it's been wheel to wheel with those guys all the time. But focusing on your race, we now go to Russia. Actually, we've got a replay here for you if you want to see it for the first time. Classic down the inside that becomes a bit messy as they took the second one. Any initial comments?
I mean, I don't know. It's unfortunate.
I understand it takes the time to digest that, but this debate will go on for some time. Ahead of going into the next Grand Prix, I guess you just focus on finishing out your career in Mercedes with the best results.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, it's a strong weekend from my side. Pace has been good, so it will be nice to have 1 week of rest, and then we go again.
Okay, thank you, Valtteri. Congratulations. Lando, congratulations, big smile. Very important day for McLaren. And you know, amazingly, McLaren are the only team to get a 1-2 this season.
Yeah.
So I know you would have preferred that you were winning it, but this is a big moment for the team and your journey with them.
Cheers. Yeah, first of all, big thanks to everyone, all of the fans, all the team. We've had a pretty awesome weekend. So I don't know, I guess 4 years ago I joined the team. We've been working towards this, and we got a 1-2 finally. So yeah, a good step for us. I'm happy for, of course, Daniel getting the win and me in P2. So just happy for the team.
Well, that's great, but you are a racer, and we did hear you on the radio giving Daniel the hurry up. Was it a moment where you were hoping that maybe it could be like earlier in the year in Imola, where Daniel, moved to one side and you could have came through for the victory?
Of course. Yeah, you've been in that position before where you want to go for it, but I'm also here for the long term. I'm here for the team, and yeah, I don't know. It could have ended up like the other two ended up. So I'm just happy. I'm happy finishing second. I'm happy for Daniel in first place. I love my chance in the future, so all good.
Very mature, Lando. Fantastic. Congratulations. And finally, if we can disturb the man from down under for a moment, Daniel Ricciardo, you're a winner again.
Can I swear? I want to swear.
No, you can't swear.
About time.
Yeah, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks. Oh, wow. Yeah, I tried to soak.
This was crucial. This is where it really happened for you at the start. Talk us through.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it worked well for me yesterday, and I knew, to be honest, even if we got the start, it was never a guarantee would lead the whole race, but was able just to hold firm out front the first stint, and I don't think we had like mega speed, but it was enough just to keep obviously Max behind, and then I don't know, there was safety cars, there was this and that, but to lead literally from start to finish, I don't think any of us expected that, but I don't know, there was something in me on Friday. I knew something good was to come, so let's just say that.
Well, whatever that was in you on Friday, you want to keep that for the next events, because this is a big day of celebration for you as a driver at McLaren, for McLaren as a team on the way back. But we've been waiting for you to show this kind of pace and performance. So put us in that car. The last couple of races have been strong for you.
Yeah, I've just been a sandbagging SOB the whole year. That's all. I mean, thirds, fourths, fifths, you might as well just win. So that's what I did. You know, I honestly, the August break was good just to reset. So I felt better the last 3 weekends, and I mean, yeah, to not only win but to get a 1-2, it's insane. You know, like for McLaren to be on the podium, it's huge. Let alone 1-2. So this is for Team Papaya. I'm for once lost for words.
Well, look, if you can't have a Ferrari victory for the Tifosi, you have your Italian roots. So a little word to the Italian fans here.
Yeah, ho visto Charles in secondo posto e ho pensavo forse una... Oh,
I actually didn't realize you spoke Italian. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'll give the crowd what they want. Ho pensavo c'era una Ferrari sulla podio oggi, ma ok, comunque spero un nome italiano abbastanza bene. Grazie mille. Salutami, mamma e papà.
Well, thank you for that. I have no idea, but I imagine it was all good. Right, you need to get your shoe off because we're going to see the shoe on the podium.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to leave.
Go and enjoy it, Daniel.
I don't know what to say.
Go and enjoy it. Congratulations.
Okay, shoey to come then, and brilliant from Daniel Ricciardo, using his Italian to thank the Ferrari fans, the Italian fans here this weekend. And you can just see from looking at his face, Martin, what this victory means for him.
Yeah, it's a well-earned victory as well, isn't it? And as you said, I just stepped aside for a while. I hadn't disappeared. I'm not sure people were writing him off. Just confused by the fact that he seemed to be struggling a little bit, but he's put that right of recent times.
Summer break helped, I think.
Yeah, he said on Sky F1 over the weekend, I felt better after the summer break. He didn't expand on why or what he meant by that.
Just found himself a comfortable deck chair and rested for a bit. And no doubting, it's very rare you win a race at the first corner. However, that move on Max Verstappen at the start, that just opened the door for what was to come.
Absolutely. But yeah, I think the fact that they were able to pump in fastest lap at the end, it just shows you, you know, they really did have it covered.
And they now lead, well, the lead now over Ferrari, 13.5 points in the Constructors' Championship. Mercedes still out in front in their battle with Red Bull. The difference 16 points, and 5 points between Verstappen and Hamilton. What do you think's going on in the garages of Red Bull and of Mercedes? What are the chats behind the scenes? They're going to have to go to the stewards now, aren't they?
Yeah, I think there'll be a big deputation, obviously, from both teams. Max will, or Red Bull will be defending their man, and I'm sure Mercedes will be trying to save.